the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you all the way through until 1 o'clock. And of course, coming up at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. And this is why I set you the homework to watch Inside the Manosphere, which I have done. And I was surprised by the programme. I mean, I was aware anyway of this culture. I think when you have a son, you try to be more aware of what's going on, and he also just educates me about stuff as well. But I was surprised how I wasn't more angry, actually. I'll go into this a bit more a little bit later on, but it was an interesting watch. I don't think it broke new ground. I love Louis Theroux. I love the way he sort of doesn't interview. He kind of just lets people speak for themselves. But listen, if you didn't watch Inside the Manosphere, that doesn't count you out of the conversation at all. The Manosphere is an ecosystem of online communities and groups that spread harmful views about gender, masculinity and women. It's growing fast thanks to influencers and social media algorithms, and is shaping young men and boys' beliefs worldwide. Progress towards gender equality is at risk as a result. That is just a brief description of what the Manosphere is. It includes a wide range of people, the groypers, which are more sort of religious based, the incels, which are the most extreme version, and these influencers that were on the programme Inside the Manosphere, who are basically making money by selling a lifestyle that is, you know, they're selling courses to become these alpha men, and teaching young boys about their view of women. And again, I didn't disagree with them about their view of the women they were talking about, but of course that's not all women. In the same way that I keep hearing, well, it's not all men. So it's not all women, and they have a very narrow view of what a woman is, and they were the ones that they were attacking. But anyway, more on that a bit later, but I do want to hear your views on it. What does it mean to be a man? So that's for the guys out there. What does it mean to be a man? What is this about this masculinity, these extreme forms of breaking bones to make your jaw more square? All of these things, this masculinity. And the other question really is, what do you think women have taken away from you? What do you think that women have deprived you of? And I think that's a multifaceted question, really, because I'm not just talking about jobs and money. I'm talking about, what have they taken away from you? Your sense of being masculine, your sense of being the provider. What is it that women have taken away from you? And as women who watch this, and I know a lot of you told me you've done your homework, well done, go to the top of the class. What are you talking to your boys about? And what do you make of this manosphere? Does it worry you? Does it scare you? The rise in women, you know, violence against women and girls. So I'd love to talk about this. I'm really, really fascinated about this. I think it's a really interesting part of our society. So that's what's coming up at midnight. We're also going to be heading to Scotland, Fort Augustus to be exact, to talk about the Loch Ness monster. Elliot Wilson will be joining us to talk about defence spending as well. Oh, and Vincent Moss is going to be here as well to go through the papers. But first, there's an investigation today about misogyny in football and sexism in football, and found that the incidents have been on the rise. Following Louis Theroux's documentary on Netflix, debates on misogyny in the manosphere have uncovered worrying figures and trends. A large global-scale survey by King's College London found that almost a third of Gen Z men agree that a wife should always obey her husband. That's Gen Z. Boomers, it's about 14%. The Manosphere, like I said, is an ecosystem of communities online. So who is watching these, and what are they learning from them. Well, to discuss that, it's Ted Newson, who is from Young Voices UK, and listening to Ted is Dr. Andrew Fergus Wilson, who's a senior lecturer in sociology and criminology at the University of Derby. Ted, a very good evening to you, Ted. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. What are you seeing? What is it from your... How old are you, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 21, Petrie. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect age. That's exactly what I wanted. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, let me take you back to when I just entered university, which was obviously my first kind of experience as a space surrounded by only young people. And Andrew Tate was on the rise, I won't lie to you. The people I was speaking to had quite a favourable view of Andrew Tate. The kind of allegations that have come out in the last couple of years weren't there, and the people I was talking to were almost indoctrinated by the stuff he was putting out, because he was this charismatic guy who had a whole load of money, he had a successful business. Obviously, he was using his free speech to put out all of this offensive content. And he had a kind of drive to him, which attracted these men towards him and towards his harmful ideas. And essentially, I don't know if anyone went entirely down the rabbit hole, but they were certainly implicitly supportive of him, simply because he was this charismatic guy who was breaking the mold. And he was, he was going against all of the kind of woke stuff that had captured the debate at the moment.
And did you say that your peers, if you like, were sucked into this? Did they suck you into it as well? And what were the words? What was it about it that attracted you to it?
Well, when it came to me, I'll happily tell you, I was 18, I was impressionable, and the people around me were saying it. I think I was sucked in, yes.
And what were they saying? Was it about the how to be a man? Right, every 18-year-old young man will ask himself that question. Or was it about that women are the reason that you can't be who you think you want to be?
Well, I think that's how they originally get you in, because when it comes to me, my values are being driven, setting up a family, having a good career, starting a family, marrying, and they were talking about all of these traditional masculine values. And I think the real problem is there's not many kind of influences in that space that are promoting that. And a lot of people are pushing back against kind of, I don't know, the kind of the way some people have almost demonized the nuclear family, and they're trying to cling on to that.
Did you start to absorb the fact that women were a problem, that women were in a sense causing the downfall of the nuclear family?
Well, this is what people are pushed into, because at least with my experience, it starts with that kind of kernel of truth. So you see the people pointing to the OnlyFans models, and they say this is immoral. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on OnlyFans are, but I certainly wouldn't subscribe to anyone myself. And from that, their kind of conclusion is to push you towards this deeply misogynistic view on all women, which is incredibly harmful. And I'll tell you, Petrie, I didn't get that far, but there were some views I was seeing where I thought, gosh, this is past the line.
I mean, it is interesting. Look, my view on OnlyFans is that as long as a woman isn't being coerced to do something, she has a right to do it. Do I approve of it? It's not up to me to approve or disapprove. But that's what struck me about the documentary, was that the view of women was a very narrow band of women. You know, even when there was a podcast being, you know, and these women were OnlyFans girls. They were not women like me, for example, they made fun of them. And said to a girl who was a bit of a bigger body, saying, "Well, you're fat, you're never going to find anybody." So this sort of shaming of women and degrading women. But they wouldn't be in a room with a woman like me, for example. They wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of points to a despairism that these people are trying to push onto their audiences, which can kind of get them further into the manosphere, where they think, oh, all women are useless, all women will just sell their body for whatever money or fame you can give them, when that's blatantly not true.
Is it the case, though, with young men that they're just, I don't know whether it's, do they want somebody to blame and therefore it's women? Because again, watching the documentary, I completely and utterly agreed with the premise that the world wants us to be wage slaves, that there are a few very wealthy people running the world. I completely believe in that. But they're blaming the wrong people. And that's what I found interesting. They weren't prepared to take on men like themselves. So they were punching down, if you like. They're punching and trying to blame other people for the problems that we all face. Women too.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of points to what I was saying earlier about a kernel of truth being in these people's points. And that's the kind of hook that gets these impressionable young people and pushes them down a pipeline to thinking, if I don't smash up my face or hit the gym every day or engage in a whole load of detrimental behavior, rather than a kind of moderate masculinity, which is, I think, what true man is,
I can tell you
it's
that
not good for society.
Most women and girls that I know are just absolutely not interested in men who spend their lives in a gym. They're really not. Boring, self-serving and vain. And there's many women that I know who just absolutely wouldn't go anywhere near a guy like that. Where do you think this is going to end up, Ted? Because there is, the very worst of this is the incel culture, the men who believe they have a right to a woman's body. The idea that was it Nick Fuentes that was walking around with a T-shirt that said "Your body, my choice." I mean, that is beyond toxic. That is dangerous. That is a dangerous narrative that is being fed straight into boys younger than you were, who are growing up now, being rude to their teachers, calling them all sorts of names, refusing to take orders from a female teacher. All of these things, it is happening at younger and younger and younger. How do we stop this? How do we reach out to boys? You were vulnerable at 18, you're just out in the big world. Luckily, you were smart enough not to go there, but you could have done.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of points to a wider problem about a lack of kind of, I don't know, family role models as well. People just don't see their dad as much. People don't see their kind of family, their community as much. But I mean,
it's interesting they blame the women for that when the dads are absent.
I know. But Petrie, there is a cause for optimism, and that's, I don't know if I'm being dim here, but there's an influencer who's kind of taken social media by storm over the last couple of days, weeks even. Jim Skin. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I should look him up though.
So essentially, this is an influencer from Essex. Goes to the gym. He's quite well built, but he's also incredibly well mannered. He opens the door for women. He's very polite to people. He helps out the elderly. Very active in the community. And I think really it's people like him, and this might be my Essex bias talking, but it's people like him who are the kind of antidote to toxic masculinity and this dark path that the manosphere has led us down.
I hope so. Well, and also young men like you, Ted, to be honest, if you have an experience of this that I don't have, and you'll be talking to your friends, hopefully calling out your friends if they veer to, and that's where the future lies. It's in sensible voices who understand the situation. I'm very grateful, Ted, that you joined me. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck with it all. Ted Newson there from Young Voices UK. We're listening to that was Dr. Andrew Fergus Wilson. who co-hosted the 2026 Research Cafe specifically on the Manosphere, incel ideology and toxic masculinity. He's also a senior lecturer in sociology and criminology at the University of Derby. It's a big introduction. Hello there, Andrew. It's so good to see you. And to have that experience, because the Manosphere, look, I have a son, he's 28 now, but you know, he keeps me in touch with what's going on with stuff. What did you make of the documentary, first of all?
In many ways, it confirmed ideas and tropes that have been circulating online for some time now. I mean, this is one of the things that, thankfully, we are beginning to have these conversations. And I think Louis Theroux has done, as he always does, an absolutely superb job of letting people effectively condemn themselves through what, to me, is the paucity of their worldview. They reveal themselves as having quite a thin space in which to be male. They don't allow themselves or their followers a great deal of scope for exploring different ways of being male, different ways of, and I think you hit one of the nails on the head, of just learning to grow into being a man. This idea of at 18, we don't have many maps. The generational, I don't know if we can talk about a generational split, because one of the things that's really common is that a lot of the ideas that circulate in the Manosphere are ideas that are not generationally bound. It's not just 18 to 21-year-olds. There are people decades older who it appears that they feel that they've had a space to be allowed to express these views. One of the I do like the way in which your conversation with Ted developed, and your points, Petrie, that why blame women? This becomes a really interesting question. So the Manosphere is an umbrella term. It includes incels, who we've heard mentioned, and then they've got all their various pill categories: blue pills, purple pills, red pills, black pills. Black pills being those who have disconnected from mainstream society, who may become nihilistic, and this is where we see a propensity for violence. But then there are those who simply see themselves as having woken up to this awareness of the of, as they see it, the way in which the world is stacked against them. And what we find across the Manosphere, incels, people who are still talking about Gamergate 10 years on, pickup artists, men going their own way, men's rights activists, no fappers, which I don't think we want to get into. There's this whole spectrum of different ways of expressing the same idea that you pinned down, this idea that women are out to undermine us. Feminism was a plot against a model of masculinity that had been working very well. And I think we begin to, the more we look into it, the more we find that those narratives are very much like conspiracy theories. And this is why we see Manosphere overlap with some other forms of extremism, particularly the extreme right and the radical right, who also tend to center the idea
and
of
Christian nationalism as well. We mustn't drop the ball on that one either. This whole...
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when I watched this, Andrew, I surprised myself because I felt sorry for them.
Yes.
I genuinely did. I wasn't angry with them. I thought, oh my God, you're so weak. This is actually pathetic. And I didn't mean that in a nasty way. I was like, oh my God, this is so sad that my son is so much more of a man than you will ever be. He doesn't go to the gym, he loves his mum, he loves women, you know, I mean, he's not got a racist bone in his body. All of those good things about being a human being. And I think that's what I found depressing, was the lack of understanding of humanity.
Yeah. Do you know, this is something that I wondered if we'd be able to touch on. There is a whole, I guess, backdrop to this, which is the economic turbulence that we live through. It undermines people's sense of certainty. That phrase, wage slaves, my goodness, we can use that from multiple different political positions. There seems to be a general awareness, regardless of who you are, where you sit in relation to the way things are. There is a sense that, come on, there has to be more than this.
But this is because of the wealth distribution we're seeing, right? This is an absolutely as a result of seeing these 3,428 people holding 90% of the world's wealth, and the rest of us are just meant to work for them and make them richer. Yeah. So I understand that, and I got that, but we're not to blame. They are.
No, this is it. This is it. And I think there is something about the uneasiness of. How do we go about changing this? That scapegoating is so typical of conspiracy theories. One of the areas, and I thought it was very interesting that you identified a weakness there. There's a superb piece of research. It's from 2018, Swedish academic. Her name just escapes me, Lisa Alberg, but she wrote about Anders Breivik.
Right.
Now, Breivik's manifesto, 1,500 pages of it, really intensely boring when it came down to it, but it was also mostly plagiarized. And the two things that he combines are this anti-feminist strand that we see in a lot of online cultures, and also the Great Replacement theory, this idea that white civilization is being undermined and replaced by migrants. At the heart of it is this idea that it's the migrants, it's feminists, for him it was cultural Marxists, non-Christians. These were the people to blame. That big picture, thinking about globalization, thinking about economic systems, thinking about flows of people, it doesn't seem to register. There's this focus on the immediacy of what I want and what I deserve in the world. And what this academic wrote about was not any agreement with his politics, but an agreement with a sense of I've not succeeded in this complex world that we live in. He was born into a relatively middle-class family, but his businesses failed. He failed to find a relationship. He failed to develop a social network, people around him, friends, communities to engage with, and he began to blame those scapegoats.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the danger sets in, that all of us face these disparities in wealth, this income distribution that is profoundly unfair, because all of us, whatever we do, we work hard and we contribute where we can, what we can. And then there's an awareness that there are people for whom all of our money and all of our online activity on our phones, all of our data simply becomes a means of accumulating greater wealth for them.
Yeah.
And where is the sense of purpose? And this, I think, becomes the appeal of the Manosphere, or conspiracy theories, or radical politics of any stripe. There is a sense that what we're doing is for somebody else's benefit.
And I get that. I completely understand that. The fact that young people like my son are never going to be able to buy a house, can barely afford to have a cat, let alone a child. I mean, I can sense that frustration. I'm frustrated for them. And so I get that. It's just fascinating to me why they would pick on particularly women to downgrade to make themselves feel better.
And I think there's a tendency to see, because we're talking about the Manosphere, we see the misogyny, and it's great that we're talking about it and thinking about ways to respond to it. After the research cafe that I did, and a week before that, I also did a webinar which struck a nerve with people locally. And I've had a lot of organizations who work with young people, who particularly work with young men, saying, can you come and talk to us? Dr. Shelby Judge, who I also work with at the University of Derby, who works on this from a different perspective, from a media perspective. She also has had similar contacts. There's a real appetite to talk about misogyny and the way in which misogyny is becoming embedded in the cultures of young men. And some of these people are working, they're youth workers who will turn around and say, it's 6-year-olds, it's 7-year-olds.
Yes, that's what I was saying to Ted. It's kids at primary schools now.
So this becomes deeply embedded and it becomes a worldview. It's not something that you can straightforwardly say to somebody, well, look, you've got it wrong. Because as soon as you challenge, particularly young people, around their beliefs, they're not going to accept what you say because you're in a position of authority, you're an expert, whatever. You're exactly the sort of person whose narrative they're going to reject. So it's ways of responding to this, becoming part of a life world and enlarging their life world in a way that is meaningful. I mean, I perhaps do sound like an archetypal old sociologist here, but just talking about the idea of youth clubs and the opportunity for young people to meet socially
Completely
and to
agree
learn
with you. I've talked about it a lot and said that, you know, where there are youth clubs, there's absolutely less crime, less violence, better behaved kids and people engaging with people of the opposite sex as well at a younger age and being able to see them as human beings. Just finally, were these influencers in this documentary scam artists to a degree? Were they doing it for the money?
You're beginning a new conversation here that I would love to get into. I don't think influencers are going to be the answer because I think there is a lot of grift online. I think there's a lot of cynicism and hypocrisy among influencers who are willing to exploit exactly those vulnerabilities we've spoken about. Some, I think, do believe in what they're saying, but not all of them. I really do think there is a willingness to pull the wool over some very vulnerable young men's eyes.
Yeah, I think that's what I took from it as well. I really enjoyed that. Let's talk again. It's good fun. Dr. Andrew Fergus Wilson there, Senior Lecturer in Sociology and Criminology at the University of Derby, who, for the purposes of this interview, we hosted a research cafe specifically on the Manosphere, incel ideology and toxic masculinity. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. Just a quick reminder that the Talkback section is, we are going to be talking about the Manosphere. If you watched it, I've already had loads of messages coming through. I'd love to hear your voices as well. If you watched it, what you took from it, what you made of it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you were angry, and if you've ever been involved in an incel culture. If you are an incel, call me. We'll have I promise you, we'll just have a very grown-up chat. I'm not gonna attack you. I'm more interested than I am angry, right? I genuinely am. I'm just fascinated by it. What you think women have taken away from you, what you think, you know, you can gain back by having women obey you, all of those things. Love to hear your voices. This is an open forum, so it is open to you, so please do give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can message me as well, the word talk and your message to 87222. I genuinely mean it. I'm just more interested than anything else, so I just want to hear all of your voices, so please do call. Before that though, just a reminder, we are going to have Vincent Moss in the studio. He's also watched Inside the Manosphere, so I'll be getting his views on that as well. And we're heading to Scotland to discuss the Loch Ness Monster. It's all in this show, I tell you. But will we need defence against the Loch Ness Monster? I doubt it. But will we need defence in the future? Yes, more than likely. Keir Starmer said he's still working on the defence investment strategy for Britain and will not give a timeline for its release. The Prime Minister told MPs yesterday that overcommitment and underfunding by the previous government were to blame for delays to the British military's 10-year spending blueprint. He claimed the plan, which was initially due to be published last autumn, was in its final stages, but he couldn't give an actual date. Of course, this is the day after HMS Dragon arrived at the scene of Cyprus, where it was supposed to be there defending British interests, 3 weeks after the war began. You would have thought that we would have learnt from that, yeah? No, it appears not. Elliot Wilson joins me now, who's a writer, historian and senior fellow for the National Security at the Coalition for Global Prosperity and served on the Defence Committee for over 10 years. Elliot, thank you so much for joining me. There seems to be, for me, I get so frustrated with this because if we don't have a decent defence, if we don't have a decent military, nothing else really matters, right? It feels to me like that is one of the most important things that a government should do for its country.
Well, absolutely. I mean, national security is the fundamental responsibility of any government. And I think, you know, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, said last year that, you know, NATO countries could continue to have very generous welfare spending, very generous health spending, but you better learn to speak Russian. And, you know, he was making a point, but it is a point there. You know, if we can't defend our borders, if we can't defend our interests both abroad and at home, then there's no point in really anything else. No. And we're already under threat from, you know, a lot of aggressors, Russia, China, Iran. We are already under threat and already being attacked by them in a number of, you know, below conflict ways.
I mean, is this because of the sort of the peace dividend, if you like, the fact that for 80 years we kind of sat on our laurels and just thought, well, the world's fixed now. We're fine. Everything's going to be okay. Because, you know, I used to work with the military and every year the cuts and the regiments being amalgamated and the regiments being disbanded, and every single year I would read that awful white paper and go, what are they doing?
There is a lot of that. I think, obviously, when the Cold War came to an end in 1990, 91, there was a belief, which was not unreasonable at the time, that we were going to face a period of peace, and that any military commitments we had would be much less. They wouldn't be sort of peer-to-peer against big armies. They'd be more expeditionary, that kind of stuff. But there's also the issue that the Ministry of Defence, under both governments, or governments of both colours, have had a terrible habit of delaying things a little bit, kicking things down the line just a few years. And, you know, you make a little bit of saving year on year, but then you end up actually spending more over the period of 15, 20 years. And, you know, they salami slice capabilities, they have gaps in capabilities and get away with it. But we're seeing now that we have serious gaps, which mean we can't do things we should be able to do And more worryingly, I think we can't do things which we've said to our allies we can do. We are letting our allies down in a lot of cases. And I think that's very, very worrying for Britain.
Have we been exposed? Is this an embarrassing time for Britain in terms of our military?
I think it is. I mean, we've been exposed to the more sort of professional spheres for a long time. I mean, when we failed to handle security in Basra in Iraq in 2005 or so, the Americans noticed. We'd said that we could do this. We'd been in Northern Ireland. We knew what we were doing, and it turns out we didn't. And that a note was taken of that. But when you have the French diverting 10 warships from an exercise to the Eastern Mediterranean as soon as this current conflict starts, and we have to dig around for one destroyer because the other four are all in port or being serviced, and we have 5 attack submarines. 4 of them are tied up. One of them's in Australia. I mean, the gaps are so big now that we can be caught out, and we have been caught out in this case. And of course, sending HMS Dragon to the Eastern Mediterranean is fine, but it means that we have no defence here at home.
And that's the point, isn't it? Just recent days, of course, there's been talk of a missile potentially being far enough reaching to get to Britain. We don't have a destroyer; they're all in dock. So we've only got 3, 4 anyway that would have to be lucky to be in the right place to shoot down a missile. I mean, luckily we've got NATO allies that will do that for us, but nonetheless we are incapable of defending ourselves.
It is worrying. I mean, our anti-missile capabilities are pretty much nil at home. And everybody knows that. I mean, if I know that, then the Kremlin knows it, and then Tehran knows it. And I think for the government to say it's all fine, it clearly isn't all fine. Now, that's partly true of other countries as well, because we've not had a sort of serious ballistic missile defense capability really ever. I mean, Israel's a different matter because Israel's a much smaller country, so it can have Iron Dome and things like that. But we've got warplanes here, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to intercept missiles that were fired from Iran. Iran would probably struggle to get something this far with any serious warhead on it at the moment. But if it can't do it now, it can do it in a couple of years. It is only a matter of time. And so we have to think about what we're going to do then. And that brings us back to the issue of spending.
It seems, though, that one of the delays in coming forward with this defence spending plan may well be that we're at a crossroads in terms of the kind of weapons and the kind of defence. I'm being generous to Keir Starmer, which is unusual, but it could be because of that, surely, that we are now looking at drones being a major player now in wars since Russia-Ukraine, and we're seeing them being used to brilliant effect strategically by Iran. So is that part of the problem as well? That should we invest in a tank? Are we going to need tanks? Should we invest in a defence system so that we can't attack but we can defend? Is that part of the conversation, do you think?
It's certainly a part of a conversation that needs to be had, because what we've failed to do over the past 20 or 30 years is decide whether we're going to spend enough to be a sort of mini superpower where everything that can be done, or whether we're going to give up certain things and say we just can't do that because we don't have the budget to allocate to it. I mean, that is a conversation that's going on, and it's a difficult one because there are choices, as you say, between traditional hard power like tanks and then things like drones. But this didn't happen yesterday.
No.
The Defence Investment Plan was supposed to be released last autumn. It's now looking like April, May. Some people have suggested it may be as late as July. I mean, it could be a year after the Strategic Defence Review came out. And that's a long time for you to say, here's a review, and now here's how we're going to pay for it. And the government has got to start saying, we take responsibility for that. They blame the previous government for a lot, in a lot of cases, rightly. But there comes a point when you've been in office for, 18 months now, coming up for 2 years, when you can't blame the last people anymore. It's like Plummer saying, who did this last work? At some point, you've got to step up and say, right, we're in charge now. And, they're not committing the kind of resources to provide the kind of defence policy and international standing that they claim to want. And something's got to give, or they've got to provide more money. And
of course, Elliot, one of the problems is that, as however long this review takes to happen, you've got to add on a couple of years of ferocious building, whatever it is you're going to be building, in order to get it up to speed. And we may not have that time.
That's a huge problem right through defence procurement. I mean, if you look at, for example, the Ajax armoured fighting vehicle, which has had so many problems recently, I mean, that was the contract that was issued in 2010. That's 15 years, well, 16 years ago coming up, and we still haven't got it in service. These kind of delays are not acceptable because warfare is moving at a much greater pace even than it did during the Cold War. So if we're building an army that could fight in 2010, that's great, but it's not 2010 anymore. There has got to be something serious that changes within the Ministry of Defence. I'm not sure what that is. There is now a National Armaments Director who's supposed to sort of kick the system up the arse a bit, but I've seen very little evidence of that so far. But we cannot spend as much money on such late projects and projects so over budget.
And the question, I guess, as well, and I've always questioned this, to be honest with you, is buying weapons from foreign countries. Because if you end up going to war with those countries, you're not telling me they haven't, fitted a back door, to cripple your weaponry. It would be stupid not to.
It's a difficult balance because, we have to buy some things from the Americans. I mean, the F-35 is such a sophisticated aircraft.
But it needs backup from America the whole time. If we were to ever have to fight America, they could cripple us.
Well, it does, but there are also elements that we put into it which would cause problems for them. But on the other hand, Ajax was procured from General Dynamics, who are building it in this country. The alternative was a Swedish model, which could have been taken off the shelf in 2010. So the alternative is that you can buy foreign stuff and you have it there and then, and it's tested and it's sold around the world and you can see that it works. What we've had a tendency to do is say, we'll have something built at home, so there's only one contractor, so we're over a barrel already. And we then spend about 5 years saying, oh, could it also do this? You end up with something incredibly gold-plated, which is superb technically, but never actually gets to the battlefield or is way too late, way too complex and way too expensive. So it's a difficult balance, and there isn't a right answer, but there are ways of getting it wrong, and we've proved that there are for the past 20 years.
How long, in your view, would it, I mean, let's say this defence spending review comes out this year, and then they start talking about, taxing us more to pay for it all. How long would it take for us to be a decent force, do you think?
It depends what you want to do. I mean, in terms of protecting the island of Britain and Northern Ireland, of course, that's relatively easy because you're mainly talking air defence and sea defence, although there is the issue of undersea cables. But I mean, we have lots of commitments to NATO to put troops into the field if NATO is threatened as a collective defence. We're supposed to provide, I think, 2 divisions. We don't have 1 division to provide at the moment. And we don't have the armour, we don't have the personnel, which is another issue, because recruitment is still very, very challenging for a number of reasons. So, you can plug some gaps fairly quickly. But the problem we're facing at the moment is we're going into a situation where it's not so much that we're buying new stuff, although we will be. We already have £20 billion worth of gaps in our capabilities. There are things across the board we cannot do. And we saw that with finding a destroyer to send to Cyprus.
And the minesweepers.
Drawn from the Gulf in January. I mean, we took a positive decision to withdraw our manned ships from the Gulf in November, December, January, and then look what happened. So,
and we didn't have a ready replacement for them.
No, the decision was made that we didn't need ships with crews on them because it could all be done by drones, and that was what our friends and customers in the Gulf wanted. Well, we've seen that's not true. And we then discovered that Cyprus was more vulnerable than we'd thought. But, we've been in Cyprus for about 70 years. We should really think that was a potential vulnerability given what we do there.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, Elliot, I just don't really have the words for it. It's embarrassing. But thank you. You've been brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Elliot Wilson there, writer, historian and senior fellow for national security at the Coalition for Global Prosperity. Right, quick break, and then... Is it a break? Yes. And then we're heading up to Scotland.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie. And just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour is Vincent Moss. He will be here to go through the papers. But first, I love this story. A fast-moving creature has been filmed rising and sinking out of Loch Ness. Yeah, we're back there again, sparking excitement that it could indeed be Nessie. Sasha Lake, 31, was standing on the banks of the loch on 1st of March at around 6 p.m. when he spotted something moving in the water. The mystery object was moving at incredible speed against the waves, and luckily Mr. Lake had his phone at the ready to capture it on camera. He said, "I was excited and intrigued. I only stopped filming because it went out of view." People are saying that there is no animal that we know of in Loch Ness that can reach this speed. So was this, or is this, yet another sighting of the Loch Ness monster? Well, I tell you, somebody who would know, should know really, is Sean Sloggy, who is a cruise boat skipper and tour guide for Cruise Loch Ness in Fort Augustus in Scotland.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, are you convinced?
Exciting stuff.
Hey?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
I've seen Sash maybe 3 days prior. He actually came out in the boat with me, and he's a gentleman that comes down. He had a sighting in 2013 before, so he's convinced that he's seen something. So, you know, that curiosity and that chance to unwind and let the mind wander. He comes out onto the boat, and you know, I always have a good chat with him. And it was maybe 4 days after he left, he said something's happened, and he sent me the footage, and I was overwhelmed. I've seen many different surface sightings, and I'm out in that loch every single day. So most of the surface sightings can be explained. You know, you get lots of debris in the loch, so you might get a tree poking up like this. We call them the Loch Ness monster. You get lots of birds as well, and you might not see some part of the years because they migrate and nest and stuff like that. And then one thing that's been quite recently as well, seals coming into the loch. But when Sash showed me that image, I was like, oh, first of all, I thought maybe it's a big goose or something like that taken off, because the object's moving against the wind and against the waves. It's pretty far out, like about almost like half a mile out, and it looks quite large. And see, the image that you're actually displaying there, I don't think that's the actual one that he's got. So it's not that.
Is it
no,
not
it's
that one?
not.
Oh,
no, it's
maybe
not.
we've got another one. We'll find it. And so, it's
don't
moving.
worry about it. But people will search for it because it is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. So this object is just moving, and it looks rather large. So I was like, oh, it must be a goose or something. But then I was like, nah, the size doesn't make sense.
So
and
is
then
it just the
speed of
water?
it.
Is it just the water you see moving, or do you actually see something?
He stood on the main road, and you can see Ucker Castle, and then you've got a mile and a half wide of the loch, and then all you can see is almost near the other side is something appear out in the middle of the loch. It rises up and it zooms across, and I thought to myself, oh, this is quite big, you know, maybe it's a seal. But then I was like, oh, wait, it's like sort of white in colour, but that could be the water, you know, the waves. And then I was like, oh, that's when I thought it was a bird. But then the size of it and the speed of it just doesn't add up. That image that you had just displayed there, that was my sonar contact. So I would arguably say that's probably the best evidence ever recorded in the history of Loch Ness of something being down there.
That's your sonar.
Yeah, that's not an eyewitness. That's modern day technology, Ray Marine. That's using sound to see. So that image that you had there, you've got the sonar will give you a shape.
Yeah, can you put it back up, Luke?
Oh, fire that on there. You tell me what that looks like.
I did look at it and go, yeah.
I sent a few through actually. There's one that's zoomed in from that as well. I don't know if you have it, but there's an enhanced version of that. It does look like
a creature with a long tail.
So
or a long neck.
Loch Ness is extremely dark. So what we notice is, see all the wee dots at the top?
Yeah.
They're like fish normally feed in the twilight zone. So they'll go up and feed on the plankton. And a wee bit further down, you've got what's known as the midnight zone, which is about 22 metres down. So there's a good example of all the fish in the twilight zone, the top left, just there.
All right.
So the boat's in the top right-hand corner at all times. Top left's where the boat was about 10 minutes ago. Solid red line at the bottom's the bedrock, black is the water, and anything in that black area are contacts in the water. So you can see all the fish at the top, and then as you get further down, these fish, they're getting larger. And then you get to this area where there's like nothing, then all of a sudden, boom, that one there's 100 and I'd say about 20 meters down, there's something huge down there. See how it's curved?
Yeah.
That means it's full of air. So that means, well, it suggests it's alive. So we're getting huge contacts in the bottom of Loch Ness using modern day technology since the 70s. So you've had like MIT, NASA, Boston Academy of Applied Science, they've all been here to see what these creatures could potentially be. Because we're connected to the sea, things come in and out, like the seals. There was sturgeon, that was a big myth for many years, but they did a DNA test and they didn't find any DNA. But then another university came and did a DNA test and they found DNA for sturgeon. So there's so many different things to take in consideration. My theory is that in the loch there are fish that shouldn't be there, the Arctic char. The loch's gone from salt to fresh, so they've been trapped there, adapted and evolved. And then you've got sturgeon, which are dinosaurs, and then there's another creature in the loch called lamprey, and they're prehistoric, so they don't even have bones, they're made of cartilage, so they're 320 million years old, so they're older than the dinosaurs. And then there's this theory about the plesiosaur, and the crazy thing about it is that their bones have been discovered all over Scotland.
So this
managed to trap itself in the loch.
Right, so that's the theory, that this is a plesiosaur.
That's what I'm led to believe, and I reckon if you were to ask people what the Loch Ness monster is, they'll 99% of them will say, they reckon it's a big plesiosaur, long neck, big body, tails, fins.
That's the image that we all have of the Loch Ness monster over the years. Is it the same monster? Is it the same Nessie, or are we seeing a pod of them? Or is it more than one, do you think? I mean, not one couldn't have lived that long. One. You think there's more than one?
I'd love to believe there was more than one. Well, with the reproduction, Mother Nature works in weird and wonderful ways. There was a case of a hammerhead shark in an aquarium, and one thing happened. It was a male shark. It was the only shark in the aquarium, and then a couple of months after, it had pups, and there was lots of babies. Like, how's this happen? So it's called asexual reproduction. So it just clones itself. So when you start to explore the water and reproduction and things like that, things can reproduce by itself. Some creatures are born pregnant. You've got like the platypus that's like, it's a mammal but it lays eggs. Everything's very, very confusing. But with Sasha's sighting, that's definitely something it's moving against the wind. It's on the surface. That to me is probably the best sighting that we've ever had recorded. And it's on like a decent fold, it's not black and white, it's a video. So you can actually track this thing as it's moving across, and you'll start questioning yourself, like, what actually is that? And for me, being there for my whole life and being out in that loch for 10 years, I can't explain that.
And have you been searching for Nessie? I mean, your sonar images are extraordinary and very difficult to argue against, right? But
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Have you ever seen her yourself?
I've had a surface sighting back in 2018, and there's an official website, official Loch Ness Monster Sightings.com. You can go on there and you can see them all. So mine one's on there, and so's that sonar contact. Sasha's video will probably be put on there as well. Since the main road was put in the 30s, there's been over 2,000, and it's not, people that are living there. It's people from all over the world.
Why then is it still considered a myth? Why is Nessie considered a myth when there's so much? Your sonar images, like I said, very difficult to argue against those. These sightings images, but people. I mean, my producer tonight, John, was like, "Well, it's definitely not." Absolutely cynical about it.
I do the tours on the boat, and I teach people about the loch, how far science has come. And one thing I say to them at the start is like, this story has grown arms, legs, a tail, and a set of bagpipes over the years, but the science behind it. You've got 60 universities that have studied it. There's been DNA analysis that has been done, and sonar and modern day technology has confirmed There are large, there are strange, and there are even unknown creatures, because there was unknown DNA discovered in that loch, 418 codes of unknown DNA.
It's very deep, isn't it?
So, it's average about 182 meters down. But the crazy thing is at 22 meters down, there's no light at all because of all the peat sediment that comes in from the mountains. So it used to be salt water. Scotland rose above sea level, and then since then it decided to rain for 10,000 years in Scotland. It never bloody stops. So it slowly changed. So people, as soon as they hear that, they're like, oh wow, maybe something is here that shouldn't be here. And if you think about it, if we're in an environment and something slowly changes, what do? You know, we adapt, we evolve, and we survive. And look where we are now. And other creatures around the world have done this. And I then say to them, it's like, if I put this boat in the sea and the ocean and told you that there were creatures down there that we've never seen before, they're prehistoric creatures and dinosaurs, would you believe me? And most of them will say yes. And I was like, well, you should, because a shark is older than the dinosaurs. Sharks are actually older than trees. You know, so people, it's all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow. So then they really dive deep into the actual science of what could be. So I think the story and maybe the financial side of it, of Nessie toys playing the bagpipes and stuff like that, cartoons that have been made, and maybe back then the claim to fame would have been very difficult. You know, there was no social media, there was a language barrier, there was no internet. So if you wanted to be famous,
you would claim to have
see something.
Yeah, my sister told me today.
That's what it was, you know.
Yeah, my sister told me today that we used to holiday at Loch Ness, and she said, you told me once that you saw the Loch Ness monster, and I said, yes, I was probably lying when we were children, but I wish I had. Maybe I'll come up and take one of your boat tours. It sounds fascinating. Sean, thank you. Absolutely brilliant. Fascinating stuff. Quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight is the Talkback hour. So it's your chance to do exactly that. And last week I sent you the homework. Of watching Inside the Manosphere, which I did as well. I watched it this weekend, and I was really surprised. I thought that I would be really angry. I was concerned about that I would break my television, throwing things at the television. But actually, it may surprise you that I wasn't. I found it really interesting. It's not a world that I'm involved in. It's a world I know about because my son and I have big conversations about lots of stuff, and it educates me about all of those things. But of course, their views are heinous, right? I got that. But I ended up feeling really sorry for them. I thought that they had a very narrow view of what a man was. I thought they were kind of pathetic. I thought they obviously had very difficult childhoods. That was evident. I thought as soon as a woman was anywhere near them, this big bravado alpha male stuff melted immediately, and they sort of became, in their own language, beta, right? They just did. It was sad to watch. Because the act that they were putting on about, you know, men are great and men do everything and men are wonderful and women are nothing and they should stay, this is my dishwasher, and then naming a woman in the room, was frankly pathetic. I didn't find it intimidating. I didn't find it scary. I thought their view of women was also extremely narrow. I mean, they were concentrating on just one type of woman. And this is probably the sort of feckless type of woman who only wants to date rich men or hasn't got enough self-confidence to... Do you know what I mean? So I felt sorry for those women as well. I found the whole thing a bit, frankly, depressing, because I just thought, well, those, you know, you're judging... And all these men wanted other men's approval. They weren't really interested. They wanted other men to admire them or boys to admire them. So they were picking on young boys who were vulnerable and getting them to spend their money. And so it all seemed... I just think the only word I can come up with is pathetic. That's what I saw. I saw pathetic boys masquerading as men, telling other boys what men should be when they weren't even men themselves. And it left me feeling a bit sad for them. I mean, even HS Tiki-Toki, who made some good comments. Again, I watched him, I thought he's an obviously intelligent lad, plays thick. I don't think he's as dumb as he pretends to be. And I think that he made a good point when he was saying, you know, we're all wage slaves and, you know, the rich are getting richer and the rest of us are left behind, and you'll never become wealthy by working for the man. You have to make your own money and you have to da-da. All of that, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. You know, the disparity between the very rich and the rest of us is now so huge that we all feel like that. We all feel like we're wage slaves and we're just barely getting by. I got that, completely understood it. I wasn't angry about that. I agreed with that. What I found interesting was that they're blaming women instead of the real culprits, who, by the way, those 3,428 people are men who are hoarding all the wealth. So I just found it really interesting that they either weren't brave enough or man enough to blame another man, so they turned their attention to women and blame them. And, you know, even, you know, one of them who said in front of his girlfriend, made me laugh. Oh, yeah, you know, actually it was Louis Theroux who said, oh, he said that he's going to have multiple wives. And she was like, really? And he was like, I think it was Myron, who then went, well, I mean, I might not want multiple, I might, you know, melted completely, weak. But she ended up dumping him. So, again, it was all fake, fantasy, surface level. I found it fascinating, though. What did you think of it? Let me know what you thought of this. Did it make you angry? Did it? I mean, their attitude towards women is just, frankly, ignorant, just stupid. That one who said, well, what have women ever invented? Right, well, probably the internet that it was Hedy Lamarr, actually, the actress, who came up with some mathematical genius that led to Wi-Fi or the internet or something. I mean, just Hedy Lamarr. So, and women who have invented radiology, X-rays, all of these things. And not least of which, that it's women that actually cell by cell built these men. But anyway, they had a lack of respect for women. Anyway, I just want to know what you think. What did you make of it? And if you're a man listening out there, I do want to hear from you if you're deep into the manosphere. If you do blame women, why? What is it that you think women have taken from you? What do you think we've done to you? In what way have we emasculated you? How is denigrating us going to make things better for you? And genuinely, I want to hear from you if you're in that category, and if you're an incel or even a groiper, a red pill, a black pill, whatever pill, give me a call. Have a conversation with a woman. And I'm not out to get you. I'm not out to get you. I'm genuinely interested as to what has formed your opinions. So please give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the National Rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Even if you didn't see inside the manosphere, you know what I'm talking about. So let me know what you think. And tell me as well, what is it to be a man? What do you think is a man? And what do you think women think is a man? And if you're a woman, call me and tell me what you think a man is. Right, let's try and get this conversation going. With me in the studio is a fabulous man. Vincent Moss is with me, former political editor. You watched this as well.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Petrie.
What did you make of it?
I thought it was fascinating. Again, it's a world I don't know anything about, but I thought what was really interesting was they seemed to, most of them, including HS TikToky, have a view that would get them clicks or clout as they saw it. And the reason they wanted that is money. So they were always live streaming, always trying to get clicks. And even though they knew they'd probably come out badly in the Louis Theroux documentary, they were happy to do it because they saw they were getting an awful lot of traffic through it. And the traffic outweighed how they looked, because all they want to do is get money through vulnerable and impressionable, largely young men. And the views they seemed to take on board, whether that was anti-Jewish views, anti-women views and all those sort of things, were the views that were controversial and got a lot of clicks and got a lot of support. Saying things like being fit and going down the gym is good for you and finding a nice partner is a nice thing to do doesn't go viral and doesn't get you clicks. Controversial views do. And I think it was just fascinating how they were all determined to become rich, and they'd all worked out the one thing they all had in common was they were determined to get clicks and get lots of followers because they wanted to monetize those people and part them from their cash. And most of the views that seemed to do that the best were the most unpleasant views, and particularly the views about women and a sort of toxic relationship with women. But it was interesting as well the number of women in the programme that collaborated, even though they didn't particularly like the views, because they also wanted to get clicks and monetize their own sites.
It was interesting. It was, for me, was HS TikToky, who I said I had a lot of sympathy for. In fact, I actually, like I said, I genuinely, Vincent, I felt a bit sad for them because I thought that they had narrowed their own experience of being a man. They'd really boxed themselves in to a very narrow interpretation, and that's not good for anybody. But HS TikToky's mum, who was there, who said, look, I don't agree with him, but then she defended him when Louis Theroux mentioned his criminal record. And I was talking to my boy about this, my son, and he said, I'm so glad you've seen it, because he wanted me to watch it so we could talk about it. And he said, you would never have let me be misogynistic or racist or hateful. You would have jumped on me and said, oi, where are you getting that from? Why do you think that? I mean, I never taught him what to think, but I would always. He said, you would never have let me get away with it. And I didn't have to, because he was brought up to have an open mind. But it was interesting to see the mum.
Yes, and she was saying, you're not that kind of person. And his view seemed to be, well, I'm probably not, but it's getting me huge amounts of money, so I'm going to say these things anyway. And it seemed to be sort of to hell with the sort of morals and the right views and how I was brought up. Just want to make money, and this is a really good way of
And his mum was a single mum who worked all hours to put him through private school.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. He's clearly not an idiot, right? And the one example of womanhood is this incredibly hard-working, selfless woman who worked several jobs to give him the best education. And you would think that would make him proud of women, or at least have respect for women. But, you know, he's introducing young women as dishwashers. Yes, and his views are really unpleasant. And it's terrible that pretty much all of the men in that programme that Louis Theroux interviewed all had views, basically sexist, unpleasant views about women. But the one thing they had in common is they all knew that that drove traffic, and they were reinforcing a kind of toxic view of women that's so prevalent in the manosphere. But having the counter view to that presumably doesn't generate any money and any clicks. And if you have that kind of view, you're not gonna get rich. And getting rich seems to be the one thing they all had absolutely in common. But it's a pyramid scheme, isn't it? It's a scam. Pretty much, yes. And that was an interesting sort of side thing, is Louis Theroux said he'd put, I think, 500 quid into one of these schemes, and it dwindled to pretty much nothing fairly quickly, because, of course, their advice is terrible. They just want people to part with their cash so they can spend it on themselves and their fast cars and all the rest of it. But it's actually becoming more toxic than that and more dangerous than that when you've got this thing called looks maxing. So looks maxing is another culture, if you like, of this, where boys are literally bashing themselves in the face with a hammer to encourage a more square jawline, and you know, saying that if you don't have an 8-pack, or you don't take steroids, or you don't, you know, all of this, then, and it's as young as 6 years old. Yes, and there was a lot of them in the gym a lot, and a lot of working out, and a lot of them that clearly had been taking steroids, and that was again one of the key things about, you know, got to look sharp, got to look fit, and it was a pretty toxic combination of qualities there, or lack of qualities. But the idea that that is what other men look at. I mean, I was seeing something on TikTok, and there was this guy who was talking about it, and he was saying, oh, you know, he was obviously part of the manosphere. He said, I went to the gym, I did everything I was told to do, and he was a big, muscly guy. And he said, and I posted my before and after, and he said, I got thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, all from men. Yeah. He said, what was the point? Yes. Yeah. Because women, most women, genuinely don't care. But what I think a lot of men do is if they care about the way a woman looks, and that's the only thing that matters, or that's the biggest thing that matters, they then think that's what women think. But women and men don't think the same. So this whole idea that a woman would want this muscle Mary, you know, who always goes to the gym, no thank you. Because he's going to spend more time on himself than he is on me, right? And he's going to be boring, probably, and not go out for a nice meal, or not have a glass of red wine, or, you know, be looking in the mirror the whole... No, thank you. No. No, and the views obviously didn't work with the girlfriends and partners on the programme, because, as you said, one of them was saying, well, I've got this great lifestyle and I can have multiple partners if I want. And his girlfriend looked visibly shocked by that, and she left him soon afterwards. Yeah. So it didn't even work with the main protagonist on the programme, who's either didn't seem to be able to retain partners, or didn't have partners for very long. And they're talking about this thing called one-way monogamy. Yes. It's just like, really? I mean, what woman is going to sign up for that? Nobody would sign up for that. Mm. I mean, not only dirty, right? Not but also, you want to be with somebody else, go be with someone else. Don't let me stop you. Yeah, and I think they say those things, and what Louis Theroux was quite clever at doing through the programme was exposing that they might say those things, but their reality is very different. And if they say they're going to live like that, their girlfriends were leaving, or I think one of the other characters said, well, I live in a different apartment and stuff, and then the next time he sees him, he's with his pregnant partner, he's moved back out of the city to the family home. Yeah, it was all a lot of smoke and mirrors, wasn't it? It was all a lot of stuff that was going on. I just found it, honestly, pathetic. But it's a fascinating world, isn't it? It is a fascinating world, and actually more interesting, I think, than these influencers, because as we've agreed, that was a lot of flash bang, give me your cash, right? Would be to look at the subcultures of that, and the people that they create, the Andrew Tates, what they've created in younger men. Those are the people I think are the most dangerous.
Yes, and
these are just all flash and, you know.
Yeah, but I think even some of those characters, the Andrew Tates of this world especially, it's the lack of respect for teachers and parents and the propensity to violence. And one of the other things that the live streaming showed of some of these influencers was that they got involved in violence, or what they alleged was paedophile hunting. Although quite how they knew these people were paedophiles, who knows? And they would beat them up on camera, and of course that would drive huge amounts of traffic. So again,
that was interesting as well, wasn't it? HS TikTok was like, I had nothing to do with that. He was pale. Yes. He was like, oh no, I've taken it off the live stream. Yeah. That's what I mean. He wasn't as stupid as he pretended to be, and that's what I found quite sad about him was I think he's probably quite a decent bloke, and I would enjoy a conversation with him. I think he's probably quite smart, but he plays this character of this thuggish dumb boy, which, like I said, is a very narrow view and a stupid view of what a man should be, and he's probably quite a decent fella.
I think so, but he was prepared to park all of that just in his sort of naked pursuit of money.
Yeah. It really, really interesting though, like you said. It's something I'm going to delve more into, I think, the incel cultures and the griepers and all of that. I think it's really interesting. Vincent Moss, thank you. We're going to take a very quick break, but that's what we're talking about at midnight. Give me a call. What does it mean to be a man, and what is it you think women have taken away from you? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor, and looking at the Sun newspaper. Vincent, strictly no BAFTAs. It looks like Claudia and Tess got out just at the right time.
Doesn't it? I mean, Strictly always does very well at these sort of awards and the TV BAFTAs, but The Sun is rather delighted that the show hasn't got nominated. But there's an awful lot of good telly around. I mean, I think Adolescence got a lot of nominations, Celebrity Traitors, those sort of shows. So Strictly's had a good run, and it has a year when it misses out.
Time to go. I mean, Ant and Dec probably are still going to get one, though, aren't they?
Seem to get one every year, don't they?
Yeah, but that's got to run out one day.
Sometime, yes, you think so.
Got to. Not that I want them. I think they're great, but, you know, it's time to move on. So yeah, this is the Strictly Come Dancing. I was never a fan. I couldn't bear it. It was too sugary for me. I didn't like it at all. So I never really watched it unless I was round at my gay best mate's place where he made me watch it. And I just sit there and make snide comments all the way through.
It's always done really well on the ratings, isn't it? Millions and millions of viewers.
And so many people absolutely love it. It's just that it was too fake and sugary for me. I just, no. not for me.
I always like the bad ones, you know, the John Sargents and the Anne Widdecombe's. And
I never even watched them, but Claudia and Tess, I think, sniffed that Strictly's days were numbered.
They did, didn't they? Got out at the right time.
There was a lot of scandal, you know, some talk of abuse, talk of drugs, talk of all, and I think they both went, we're going to cut our losses
And
now.
also a lot of the veteran dancers are leaving as well, I think.
Yeah,
so,
they are.
yeah.
They've been sacked. They've been thrown out. So maybe they're looking for a fresh breath. I don't know who's going to present it. I don't care, because I won't be watching it. So that's the front page of the Sun. That's it. Oh no, but the Clunes thing, I'm looking forward to seeing this. This was on tonight, wasn't it?
I think it's tonight or tomorrow night. Yes, tonight. I think it was on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Channel 5 drama. And Martin Clunes. I know it's Martin Clunes, right? I know it's him, but he looks so like Hugh Edwards.
He does. He's got a lot of his mannerisms as well, I think, as well.
But how does he look? He doesn't look anything like
In real
Hugh
life,
Edwards.
no, he doesn't, no.
But he looks so like him. I'm really
They've done a
looking
good
forward to watching that. I may set that homework as well for you to watch that, so we can talk about that at one point. But yes, so that was on tonight. We'd be fascinated to find out how that went. Right, the Times newspaper, middle class, what a shocker, will lose out as benefits claimants get energy help. There's a lot of people who are just about surviving at the moment, who are sick and tired of everybody else getting help and not them. And that's the middle class is not wealthy anymore.
No, that's right. And but with this help on fuel bills, which are going to drop in April, but because of the problems in the Middle East, they will definitely go up later in the year. And Rachel Reeves, in her sort of common statement, the Chancellor's pretty much not said exactly what's going to happen, but after the Ukraine war, Liz Truss handed out £40 billion, and we clearly can't afford that, so it's about who does get the money, and the suspicion is that it will go to people who are already claiming universal credit and pension credit, because that'd be a lot cheaper than £40 billion, and they may get something like £150 off their bill. But sort of yet again, from the Times' perspective, and also I think from the Mail's, that it's seen as a sort of middle class is missing out, while those on benefits get yet another handout to help them with their bills.
Yeah, and they've already had a pay rise. They've already had the 3-child cap, or 2-child cap, all of those things, and it just seems that it's only going one way. And a lot of people, you know, this middle class, they've probably got a mortgage. The interest rates are going up. You know, they're affected by, you know, the petrol prices more. Maybe they've got 2 cars because of 2 car. I mean, everybody goes, oh, boo-hoo. But these all cost. And you know, they're going to be paying more and more and more and not getting any help. And they're the biggest taxpayers as well.
Well, that's right, exactly. The money's got to come from somewhere. Effectively, it comes from either borrowing or people who are paying lots of taxes. And those sort of people are beginning to see, or beginning to get a bit fed up with a lot of it as they perceive it going to people who are on benefits, some of whom may be doing okay, because benefits under this government continue to rise.
Like I said, they've got a pay rise. It's stable. It's a stable income.
Yeah.
And you know, and then they're getting more and more help on top of that. So yeah, I mean, I can understand why people are really hacked off about that. The other story, I mean, I called this about 2 weeks ago. Trump prepares to seize Karg Island. Paratroops sent for possible Karg assault. US president says he's already changed the regime, which we know is not true. In the same way he changed the regime in Venezuela, not. Same people, just one rung down. Exactly the same in Iran. It's so difficult to know what's going on in this war, because there are lies, absolute direct lies. There's misinformation, there's disinformation, and not in the usual way. This is coming direct from the Pentagon or from Israel. You know, the fact they've got no more weapons left, we've destroyed them all. Well, they're still bombing. They're still, you know, they bombed a ship in the Strait of Hormuz today. You know, Pete Hegs is saying, well, the Strait is open. What did he say? You've got to have the balls to go through it or something. It's like,
Well, exactly. Let's see him do it, yes.
Keg's breath. But yeah, Karg Island, that is where the oil exporting hub is, which the Iranian economy completely relies on. All the oil goes there, and then it's exported from there. The theory being that he's going to take this and use it as a bargaining chip.
Yes, I mean, Trump seems to say exactly diametrically opposed things on the same day. I mean, at one minute he'll say
The
that
war's over,
the war's over and we're de-escalating
negotiating.
and peace talks are underway, and at the same time he's sending potentially 1,500 people from the 82nd Airborne Division because he might be taking Carg Island where all the refineries are. So it's impossible to know what's going on because the president seems to change his mind or say different things at pretty much the same time. But it does look as though some American paratroops are being prepared for readiness for this possible
Well, and the Marines, there's thousands of Marines already that will arrive. Funnily enough, and I you know, maybe I'm a bit cynical, almost at the 5-day point that he's given Iran. And this is what Iran has said. Every time we try to negotiate it with you, it just buys you more time to bomb us. Twice they've been in negotiations, and twice during those negotiations America has attacked Iran. So why would they believe another set of negotiations?
Well, exactly, and even Trump's claim that they promised they won't ever want a nuclear weapon. Well, that doesn't.
They haven't said that.
No, exactly, and the idea that I think the bigger issue is the Strait of Hormuz is fundamentally never going to be able to be. They'll never be able to wrest that, if you like, from Iranian control. And Trump would have known
it's
that.
international waters.
Exactly.
So the fact that he's saying that he and Iran will run it is BS, because it's international waters. And that is the whole point of it. And so you're going to give Iran the right to run the Strait of Hormuz with America?
Well, I think that's his recognition that they can't control it because Iran is going to keep its tight grip on it.
Absolutely will.
And it's going to be unsafe until some sort of deal is reached. So, which Trump would have been told by all his military strategists at the time, and still went ahead with this. So we're in a very difficult position because we don't really know what's going on. All we do know is that pretty much economies across the world are imploding and bills are going up, not just fuel bills, but mortgages and food costs and everything else.
Across Asia, it's really, really bad because they took a lot of their oil from, up in the high 80s, 90s percent of their oil from directly from the Strait of Hormuz. And they are absolutely in dire straits already.
Very much so. The food, not just even things like pensions. People can see their pension pots diminishing because it's shares and taking a hit. So every single facet of life, not just in the region, but in the UK and America and elsewhere, is starting to take a hit. He has to find a way of ending this because his own popularity will go through the floor. My American friends are already moaning about how their fuel prices are going up.
It's nearly $4 a gallon now.
Which sounds cheap to us, but is obviously a lot to Americans.
But to America, but it's a psychological thing with America. It really is a big, big deal in America. And he was boasting a while ago that it was $1.99, and they couldn't find any garages actually that were selling it at that price. So it was more likely $2.30 or something. But for it to suddenly go up to just under $4, that is a psychological thing for Americans. It's a big, big deal.
Very much so. And they rely so much more on their cars because they haven't really got public transport outside the main cities in the way that we do have to some extent here. So it's a huge problem, and he will need to find a solution very quickly.
And Trump is unable to explain as well, where he says, well, we don't rely on the Strait of Hormuz. So, and yet his prices are going up. Make that make sense. Well, it's because all oil, it's not a nationalised oil, for example, in America, right? There's no nationalised oil. It belongs to the oil companies who pay taxes on it. That's how America makes money from its oil, but it doesn't own the oil. And all of the oil goes into a big bucket, which is then priced and shared around. That's why their prices are going up.
Yes.
But Trump doesn't seem to understand that. He's saying, well, we've got loads of oil, we're all right. And the oil they've got is dirty oil. So
exactly.
it has to be deported to be refined, to make it of any use whatsoever. So I don't know what he's not understanding here.
And all their imports, because all the things they import are more expensive, so all their bills in the shops are going up.
Of course, but it seems to have completely passed him by. He doesn't seem to be able to connect the dots on that. But anyway, that looks like it's likely to happen. Iran is not going to take kindly, let's put it that way, to that happening. Quick break, Vincent, and then we'll be back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me the fabulous Vincent Moss, the Daily Mail Vincent, middle class to foot the bill for Reeves Benefit Street fuel bailout. So that was what we were talking about, that was on the front of the Times, and as you said, both papers taking that view. The Daily Telegraph, fuel shortage may hit Europe within weeks. It's a ripple effect. We see South Asia first to get the brunt of that, which moves into Europe as we get into April. Europe risks fuel shortages as soon as next month as the fallout from the Middle East crisis deepens.
Well, it's almost certain to happen, isn't it? It's happening already, and as the Telegraph points out, about a fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas supplies are trapped in the Gulf following the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And even though Britain's trying to sort of, according to the Telegraph, leading efforts to reopen the choke point, as it calls it, by putting drones out there, it's clear that there is going to be a shortage, and that is going to cause problems, and it's going to hit supply, and prices are going to rise. And the Telegraph also mentions that bankers have said that a prolonged energy shock could plunge Britain into a recession. So it just gets worse and worse.
It does. It really does. And we won't be the only ones. It'll be all of us. Yeah, there's another story here about national savings in chaos. National Savings and Investments, NS&I, have been accused of shortchanging bereaved families by losing track of investments, delaying payouts and withholding premium bond prizes. So that's the premium. I didn't realise NS&I was the premium bonds. But yeah, families of deceased savers have been forced to call in lawyers to obtain cash that's rightfully theirs, and have incurred thousands in additional costs because of failures dating back years at the taxpayer-backed bank.
Yeah, it sounds horrendous. I mean, a lot of people got money in savings and premium bonds. They're apparently about £100 billion, and 26 million people have got savings there. I mean, it can always be a bit of a nightmare if you're looking for a deceased relative's bank accounts and trying to get the money out of it and the rest of it, but it looks as though the national savings and investments are in particularly bad state, and have been very, very slow at paying people out, incorrectly addressed letters and the rest of it. So it looks as though they've got some work to do, and there are sort of calls for compensation for people who've missed out, and some are saying that they've even not been able to buy houses and things because they've been reliant on that money for a deposit, and it's been too long coming. So they do seem to be very much in the firing line.
Well, I do remember, because I didn't realise it was NS&I, but I do remember that when my father died, his estate was held up for almost a year because they couldn't close the estate without the information on the premium bonds that he held. So that's also that's the impact they're talking about. Then is that the application was made to get the premium. He bought us all premium bonds when we were kids. I never got a penny from it, but they had to be closed down in order to close his estate. Everything had to be shut down, and they kept everybody waiting for over a year. I think that was the last thing that had to be done, because my father was incredibly well organised. He had everything in place. And it was the premium bonds, which I hadn't realised was NS&I, that had held up the estate for so long.
Which is terrible, isn't it? And
it also leaves people grieving for longer.
Exactly, and that's exactly the point the Telegraph makes, that it's adding to people's pain because of the chaotic situation there, and it's adding to their stress and grief, and complaints are rocketing. So, and some of those people are asking, understandably, for compensation because of the delays and things.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a frustration. It wasn't me dealing with his estate, but his widow, my stepmother. Bless her, it was all very stressful, very stressful. And somebody you love has just died.
Yeah,
as well.
It's the last thing you need.
It's the last thing you need. Yeah. This is in features, but I would love to be able to read it. It's just on the front page. I cannot believe the audacity of the man. Hugh Edwards' extraordinary plan for a comeback.
Well, you never know, do you? There was that very...
Surely not.
Well, he's very unhappy about the programme. We know that because he issued a statement of saying he wasn't consulted and didn't like it.
Why should they?
Exactly, no. Indeed. But he did at one point put a kind of new, moody, black and white photograph of himself.
We were on air together when we saw it. Yeah.
And he put it up, and people started commenting on it, and he took it down, and that looked as though he might be trying to sort of test the water.
Exactly what we said at the time. A few months ago now.
Yeah, and re-enter. So who knows? I mean, he'll presumably have to see how this show lands.
There's no chance. I can't. I mean, the only thing, the quote that I've heard Martin Clunes saying about playing Hugh Edwards was that he said, "I played a monster." Doesn't sound like it's going to be a programme that Hugh Edwards is going to enjoy, or that anybody is going to go, "Oh, he was a nice guy." He's got no way back.
No, and
I mean, this is what annoys me about these entitled old men. It's just like, no, mate. Well, you broke one of the biggest taboos in society, and you think you're coming back. You think we're going to forgive you.
That's right. I mean, there are other things that people could have done where there's sometimes a route back.
Sometimes
but
there's a route back.
Not from what he's done. And of course, the other thing that many people are still annoyed about is he's refused to hand back the licence fee payers, the pension he got out of licence.
That was his final payment, wasn't it? It was 200 grand.
Yeah, and he's
still getting the pension.
Yeah, I think yes, exactly. And he's refused to pay back the
the 200 grand. Yeah. £200,000 or £300,000. And the BBC said they wrongly paid him and they shouldn't have paid him, and then they asked for it back, and he went, "Get stuffed," which is frankly what I would have said. But yeah, I cannot get my head around him thinking he's got a way back. It's like Fergie. She thinks she's got a way back, and she hasn't been found guilty of what he's been found guilty of, and she hasn't got a snowball's chance in hell either.
There's no way back for either of them, is there? Maybe they should get together and do a podcast.
Yes,
exactly.
Which we can all ignore.
Called No Way Back. Yes.
Let's have a look at the Mirror. The George Medal winner, kind-hearted hero, has told how he saved countless lives at a hospital by offering a would-be terrorist bomber a chat and a hug. Was he the cab driver? Was he a taxi driver? This is a would-be bomber asked me for a cuddle. Modest hero and how he stopped lone wolf terrorist hospital atrocity. And I remember this happening. I thought he was a taxi driver. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, this guy was carrying a backpack or whatever and was going into the hospital to cause mayhem, and this guy stopped it and saved all those lives.
Yeah, that's right. I think he was a hospital patient or something at the time, and he'd gone out to have a sneaky vape or something, and he was out there, and he managed to talk this chap out of going ahead with what the Mirror calls his twisted plan. Happened outside the St James Hospital in Leeds, and he's now going to get, quite rightly, he's going to get honoured for his bravery and stopping this.
He approached the guy after noticed him loitering outside of St James's Hospital, and said, "Can I have a cuddle?" And I said, "Yes, of course."
Would you give somebody a cuddle if they looked like they were going to bomb a hospital? It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's a tricky one. I probably would. I probably would. And my son would be going, "Mama, stop it, you're going to get hurt one day." But there you go. I probably would, to be fair. If they looked sad and lost and lonely and all of that. I'd be more concerned that they were going to hurt themselves. I wouldn't be thinking that they had a bomb on them. If I knew they had a bomb on them, probably not.
Exactly. He talked to them for more than 2 hours, apparently. Yeah. I mean, that's some going.
It's an extraordinary story. I mean, what a nice young man to do that as well, and to have empathy and to recognise somebody in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, no matter what this man was planning to do, he was clearly in trouble, disturbed, possibly mentally unwell. And that is a very sweet human being that would do that, I think. The Eye newspaper. US troops gather in the Gulf as Trump's deadline nears. Yeah, I don't trust his deadline. I don't trust the diplomatic talks either. I think if there are going to be diplomatic talks, they are a long way off. They've both gone in, apparently from rumours I've been hearing, they've both gone in with really hard, immovable, like the Russians. I want to keep this, we want that, and we want, that's what Iran has gone in with, and that's what America have gone in with, and they're nowhere near.
No, and the talks haven't worked before. Nothing suggests they'll work this time round. and the I refers to the fact that the Iran regime fears the ceasefire may be a trap. And it attacks Israel, Kuwait, Bahrain. This is, of course, despite Trump saying they haven't got any armaments left, and Saudi Arabia, and as the military vows to fight on until complete victory.
There's also this underlying corruption that is believed to have been going on with the oil prices. Oil traders bet 580 million minutes before Trump's Iran update in an unusually timed deal. They came out of it with $1.5 billion. They bet that the market would do what it did. I think it was literally 10 minutes before the Truth Social went up.
I mean,
and all the traders going, nobody trades like that.
No. Well, I mean, what a surprise that Trump's inner circle is looking to perhaps enrich itself and some of its mates by tipping them off on announcements about incredibly sensitive things that will affect the global oil price. So some people did presumably get very, very rich very
rich very quickly. Well, there's also stories about Baron Trump having invested in oil and made himself 50 million before he got out. I mean, it's just all a bit grubby, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's just grubby. Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're going through the papers for you. The Guardian again devoting about a third of the page, maybe more, to the US set to deploy airborne troops. The messaging is all over the place on this, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. He says we're in negotiations. No wonder the Iranians don't trust them, because at the same time they're building up troops in the area. Why would you do that if you weren't planning on using them?
Yeah,
the messaging is just all wrong.
He's saying exactly opposite things, isn't he? I mean,
it's opposite.
The Guardian talks about him saying he's in very good talks with Iran to end the war, and at the same time he's literally moving thousands of troops from the US elite 82nd Airborne Division, which can deploy anywhere in the world in under 24 hours, and they're going to join the thousands of Marines that are already heading for the Gulf. So both things can't really be true at the same time.
Paratroopers would join thousands of US Marines already heading for the Gulf, where Trump could order them to wrest control of the Strait of Hormuz or storm or blockade Kharg Island.
I mean, if it was a different regime, you might think that that would be applying pressure and they would cave in. But the Iranian regime has nothing to lose, and they're not going anywhere, so it's not going to work.
No, for them, they don't care how many people are killed in Iran. They don't care if the electricity goes off. They expect a certain level of martyrdom and sacrifice from the people of Iran. They've already said that. We don't care. Survival is their win. Just survival is their win.
And he also says in the same sentence, we've killed all the leaders, we don't know who's in charge, nobody knows who's in charge, but we're having very good talks with the leaders.
Yeah,
well, if he doesn't know who they are, then it's just...
And then today declared that he'd been given a very big prize by Iran, which I can't see them doing that either. But there you go. The other story on The Guardian is, funnily enough, what I'm going to be talking about in about 10 minutes' time, about the toxic manosphere. This is Shield Boys from Toxic Manosphere. MPs say men and boys need as much protection as women and girls from harmful influencers in the worst parts of the internet.
Yes, and lots of Labour MPs have written into the boss of Ofcom, Melanie Dawes, the regulator, saying that boys should be protected, particularly from the sort of vices of gambling, sextortion and violent pornography, and thinks that regulators should be doing more and isn't. Because, I mean, it's all very well regulating television and radio, which is quite well regulated, but the online world is completely different, and that's the Wild West, and they're looking for tougher action there to shield boys from, as what The Guardian says, the toxic manosphere.
And the influencers who expose them to all those things way above of their age. So according to the Gambling Commission, 53% of 11 to 17-year-old boys see gambling adverts online each week, compared with 31% of their female peers, while 91% of sextortion victims are male. Oh, that's interesting. According to the Internet Watch Foundation. That made me immediately think of Hugh Edwards. Anyway, the Daily Star, 90 quid England shirt hits the fan. Don't buy it.
Well, it's a lot of pester pressure, isn't there, from young kids who pester their parents for it. It's a huge amount of money for a football shirt.
That is a lot.
But there'll be an awful lot of them sold, and there'll be a lot of excitement about England going to the World Cup. Probably, as there always is, a lot of excitement. It fundamentally always ends in disappointment usually, but that's a huge amount of money. Imagine if you've got 2 or 3 boys or girls that want one of those. And
now, I was saying earlier to John about the when my son started to follow Man United, and you know, he would want a Man U shirt from for birthday or whatever, and I'd have to go. I think it's in. Oh no, that was the rugby as well, in Twickenham. No, Richmond. Anyway, I'd have to go to, I think there's a Man U store in Richmond, I think, and I had to go in there and buy him a shirt. I nearly fell over backwards at the price of it. It's like, are you kidding me? But that's what he wanted. So, you know, that, like you said, the pester power.
And I think apparently one of the commenters on the front of the Daily Star, where they've pulled something off the internet, is somebody saying £90 for the men's shirt, and that's the one with the cheaper material. You have got to be having a laugh, so it's not even a high quality.
It's not even that thicker material. Yeah, it looks thin. It doesn't look. 90 quid. I mean, that is just really talk about profiteering.
Yeah.
You know, that is awful. And the Daily Express gone with a completely different story. No more money unless French finally stop the boats. This is presumably Shabana Mahmood, who, because our contract is up with the French either now or in the next day or two, and she says she wants to see it performance linked. That's what she was saying yesterday.
Which sounds sensible, because
does,
we know that we're giving the French an awful lot of money, millions and millions of pounds, hundreds of millions of pounds, to stop the boats. And apart, I think, from one TV clip where one boat was stopped, the French, I think, don't manage to intercept many of them. They will claim they intercept, I think, lots.
Yeah.
But it's still only a very small proportion. And quite rightly, I think the Home Secretary is saying he wants to see a bit more bang for the buck, and wants to see the French doing a better job at stopping boats coming across, especially as we move into the spring, the conditions get better, and we'll probably see
more and more boats.
Yeah.
And also, we've got to mention the upheaval in the Middle East. You've got 1 million people kicked out of their homes in Lebanon. You've got the West Bank, all of that stuff going on. You've also got Iran, and there will be a lot of people coming across on boats claiming to be from Iran as well, in order to get that refugee status.
Well, absolutely, and any claims for asylum are going to be a lot harder should anybody want to refuse them if people are saying they're coming from those places.
If they're coming from Lebanon and from Iran, that we have to take them in because there's active wars going on. The FT VW weighs shift from cars to defence in a deal with Israel's Iron Dome maker.
Well, that's what happens in war, isn't it? Factories that used to make cars and other things.
Didn't VW do that during the Second World War?
I think VW or Mercedes or some of the
they did.
And I think there's a similar thing happening here with saying the FT is reporting VW in talks with Israel's Iron Dome maker to start producing missile defence systems instead of cars at one of the German group's factories, which is unsurprising in some ways, and you can see why, because it looks as though...
That's where the money is now, isn't it?
And there's going to be a need, whatever happens, there's going to be a need for, even in terms of just replenishing the stocks of missiles and drones and the rest of it that have been expended. So there'll be a big demand for it, and every nation pretty much is upping its defence budget, including the UK.
The Defence System's planning to team up with VW in Osnabrück. I used to live in Osnabrück. Lived in Osnabrück. I didn't even know there was a VW plant there, to be fair. The tie-up, which aims to sell systems to European governments, could be the highest profile example yet of a German car industry seeking partnership with a booming defence sector.
Well, also says that they're hoping to sell the Iron Dome system to governments across Europe, including Germany. Well, you'd think that potentially the UK might need one as well, because if it's true that some of the Iranian missiles can go much further than we thought, which not a lot of evidence for, but they did try and fire them at the airbase we've got out in the Pacific with the Americans. So if their missiles can go further, then it could be that lots of countries are going to be needing better missile defence systems.
Absolutely. I think that this is where the money is. Yes, my memory was good, actually. VW produced military vehicles and the V1 flying bomb for Hitler's Wehrmacht during the Second World War. So they've already got involved in weaponry. VW already makes military trucks as well. So there you go. So it's not its first foray into weaponry. That's an interesting story. The Metro also covers the cuddle terrorist, or the man who stopped the terrorist from killing people. And the Independent, pain at the pump. Drivers pay $307 million price of Trump's war. And I went to fill up my car the other day and nearly fainted.
Well, it's going up, and it's set to go up even further. And
I know.
I haven't seen queues at the petrol stations.
No. I was surprised actually, but there wasn't queues at all.
But that could happen, couldn't it? Because it's one thing the price is going up, but if it gets to a point which is rumoured it could happen, that it gets rationed, as is happening in some countries, or becomes
or
scarcer.
They drop the speed limit. I've seen and heard rumours of 50 miles an hour speed limit across the country.
Yeah. Which would save some money. But at the end of the day, if there's not that much fuel, then driving a bit slower won't solve the problem. I mean, it just means it might last a little bit longer. I mean, if we're going to have real problems, then you do face the threat of potential rationing, and that really will alarm people, and that will spark panic buying, which will in itself create a shortage.
There's no point, Pat. You get one tank.
Yeah.
Unless you see people going and filling up, cans and bottles and things like that, which we did see. When did we see that?
Probably in the pandemic was there a bit of that, maybe.
Possibly, maybe that. Last story here that I wanted to talk about quickly, Vincent, was on the front page of the Times. It's actually on another paper as well. Cooking a meal at home at least once a week may reduce the risk of dementia.
Well, it's good, isn't it? I mean, if it's true, and it sounds as though it is, it's come from the Japan Gerontological Evaluation Study, and so they looked at about...
Got to trust the Japanese. They're all so healthy, aren't they?
They are very healthy, and they seem to be saying that it could reduce the risk of dementia, and those people who cooked at least once a week were 30% less likely to develop dementia, which is quite a lot, isn't it? So
I just don't know how they work that out. I mean, that is it just using your brain? Could you replace that with I don't know, a crossword puzzle? I mean, it's good for me because I cook.
Yes, well, they say, I think, anything that home cooking frequently was associated with a reduced risk independently of other productive activities, which also include gardening, paid work, volunteering and handicrafts. So I think any of those, I think you're right, keeping active generally.
I'm going to live forever.
Well, yes, you probably tick most of those, don't you? So I think I'd tick a few of those. Don't tick volunteering, maybe I should take that up. And
well, this is practically volunteering, isn't it?
It's true.
I mean, let's be honest, for both of us.
But I'm not a very good cook, though, that's the thing.
Are you not?
You're quite a good baker, aren't you?
I like to cook, yeah, I've always cooked. I like cooking, I love baking. Like I said there to you in the break, the trouble is I eat it, and so I have to limit my baking. Vincent Moss, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to see you. Give my love to Walter, won't you?
Will do.
Right, coming up, it is just you and me. We're going to be talking about inside the Manosphere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very, very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. That gives us an hour, and this hour is all yours. It really is. I can't do it without you. There's no guests. There's nothing else here. I could tap dance, I suppose, sing, which you absolutely don't ever want me to do. But I would prefer it if we had a conversation. And what I want to talk to you about is the homework that I set you for last week. And many of you have been really wonderful and actually done your homework and are making comments. But I want to talk to you about the documentary, the Louis Theroux documentary that is on Netflix currently, called Inside the Manosphere. And even if you haven't seen it, you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. And I'm sure you've heard about the Manosphere anyway. The Manosphere, here's a description. It's not my description, but it's a description. Is an ecosystem of online communities and groups that spread harmful views about gender, masculinity and women It's growing fast thanks to influencers and social media algorithms, and it's shaping young men and boys' beliefs worldwide. Progress towards gender equality is at risk as a result. The Manosphere spreads misogyny and anti-feminist views through websites, forums, social media and other online spaces. It has influencers such as Andrew Tate and incels are considered to be the most extreme faction. Incels basically stands for involuntary celibates. So these are young men who are celibate. So for some reason they're not able to get a girlfriend. Maybe they're too shy. Maybe I don't know what the issues are. But then they start to blame the women for that. They say that the women are feckless, and it's women who want these big, strong, rich men, and they'll only go out with these alphas, and they'll only have something to do with these, men with incredible physiques, which is simply, well, no, it's absolutely not in my case. You should see some of my exes. Absolutely none of them have seen the inside of a gym, I think, ever. And I'm glad of it, because the most attractive thing to me with a man is somebody who can make me laugh. To be honest with you, that is the single most attractive thing for me. That's number one. And it's odd that these incels then, I think it was Fuentes who's a groyper in the US. I think he's a Christian nationalist. I think I'm right about that. He was wearing a T-shirt when Trump got in, saying "Your body, my choice." Right? This is what they think. They think that the rape culture's fine. They think that that's what women either like rape, or they're asking for it, or they deserve it. There's a lot of this misogyny and violent conversations against women. If a woman won't give herself to you willingly, then you're going to take her. It's that attitude. So this Inside the Manosphere, though, looked at the influencers that are making a fortune out of these young men and boys, saying to them, this is the only type of man you should be. It is this big, muscly bloke with loads of money and a Lamborghini, or a Lambo, I believe is the term. That's what attracts women. Again, I have to say that if a bloke came to pick me up in a Lamborghini, I would want to be sick. Literally nothing would turn me off quicker. I'm not making it up. I mean, honestly, it's just the truth. I just think it was too flash. I think it was stupid. I think he probably rented it, or was in debt with. It wouldn't appeal to me at all. And I know I speak for a lot of women, but the trouble is that these people in the Manosphere only speak about one type of woman, and they only speak about one type of man, and their view of what a man should be. And what they do is they tell other men, as a man, what women want. And they obviously don't know what women, they only know what one type of woman wants. And that is probably the shallow, slightly, I was going to say thick, but you know what I mean. Vacuous, that's the better word, woman who is, full of plastic surgery by the age of 22 but, it believes that the only man worth having is somebody who's got money. But that's one type of woman. And they're talking about one type of man. It's so narrow. It's very, very narrow. I mean, I watched the Manosphere, and I thought I would be really angry about what they were saying and their attitude to women. I found it was something really sad. I thought it was really sad for these influencers. I thought they were sad. I thought that their very narrow view of what a man should be or could be or would be or needs to be was selling men short. I thought it was sad and frankly pathetic that they're trying to attract the sort of woman that would only be attracted by the sort of man that they thought they should be. Do you know what I mean? Instead of trying to attract other women who wouldn't need them to be these muscle Marys and pretending to be loaded, instead of trying to attract those women, they were only trying to attract the woman that was likely the one who would think they weren't rich enough or muscly enough. I found it sad. I really did, and the sense of entitlement was off the charts. That one, H.S. Harrison, Tiki Toki. I thought he was probably. I thought I'd probably quite enjoy having a chat with him. I'd love to interview him. I think he'd be really interesting. I think he's a nice guy, pretending to be stupid and pretending to be this creature just to make money. There were glimpses of him that I thought he was smart. I thought he had, he had some clear ideas. And I think a lot of these men are absolutely right about the state of the world. Oh, 100%. That you're never going to become rich and independent by working for the man. The disparity between the very rich and the rest of us is so huge now that we're just wage slaves. That lots of people work, you and me, work just to pay the bills, right? If we're lucky, we can have a holiday a year. If we're lucky, we can, spend some money on ourselves. If we're lucky. And I recognised that, and I agreed with that. I thought, yeah, no, it was Tiki Toki who said it. I thought, yeah, you're right. There is a problem in the world. There really is a problem where we're all feeling that it's all pretty pointless. Might as well be unemployed, might as well be on benefits, might as well not fight the fight, might as well not go to work. I get it. I completely 100% get that, especially for younger generations. But to blame women for it, I found odd, perhaps cowardly, because actually the people who are hoarding all the wealth, are men. The people running all the companies and making the big money and possibly blocking you from doing the same are men. So I just found it really interesting. That's what I found confusing, was why blame women for something that we all suffer from, right? I didn't understand that, and I still don't understand it. Women still don't have equal pay. We're not a threat to you. Feminism isn't a threat. All feminism is wanting people to be equal. Feminists don't want to be higher than men. They just want to be equal to them. I don't think that's too much to ask for. We're not saying we want more. We just want the same. That's it. Nobody's trying to take anything away from you. And yet that is the perception. And that's what I don't understand. If you didn't see it, first of all, I'm going to play the trailer for you. This is the trailer for Inside the Manosphere.
I did a documentary today with this guy, Louis Theroux. Do you guys know who this is?
Louis Felix.
Oh, shit. Is he going to do a hit piece on me?
Careful of this fella, mate. Evil smile.
He's so woke, his wife makes him pee sitting down.
There was a funny moment where he's like, what do you think Snakeo's message is?
Do I sound like that? A little bit.
I have to say that I absolutely have always loved Louis Theroux. I've not always liked his documentaries, and I don't think this was particularly groundbreaking, but I love him. I think he's genius. I think he's really, really good. His Jimmy Savile documentary was outstanding. I mean, if you've not seen that, that's worth digging up and looking at. But in the new documentary, Into the Manosphere, Louis asked this one particular influencer, Justin Waller, if he can name anything that a woman has invented.
People ask me why Miami, and I tell them because if it was 120 years ago, I'd be on a horse on the way to California to dig for gold. It's in me. I love it.
It feels like, you know, whether you call it the red pill community or the manosphere, that it's seeking to maybe correct something, to redress a change in the culture.
I believe that the world really took a swing in the wrong direction when it comes to it being acceptable for a man to have a masculine energy about him, to be strong. It got called toxic. And you mix that with feminism, and we've asked women to become men. You know, men build, invent, build, and maintain society. That's a fact. You know, and
don't women do that too?
I look around. Can you name anything that a woman has invented and built in our plain sight?
Around here?
Nothing. Men built all these buildings. They engineered them. They designed them.
Do we definitely know that?
It is a fact.
There are many.
And there's nothing wrong with that, though. That's the other point. People think that we don't like women. I love women.
You're okay with girls, women wanting to be architects, astronauts,
absolutely,
entrepreneurs?
Hell yeah, if that's what they want.
But you think they don't really want that?
I think some of them do. But I think by and largely, these women are looking for husbands and want to have families.
Okay. See what I mean? It's kind of pathetic. I mean, you know, I love Louis Theroux saying, do we definitely know that? I would have said, what have you invented? You know, what have you built? I mean, a woman built you, cell by cell, and then gave birth to you. So and aside from the fact that, like I was saying earlier, it was a Hedy Lamarr, the actress, who came up with the mathematics to build the internet, or I mean, women. There have been so many women inventors, and also let's not forget that a lot of inventions that were invented by women, by dint of the fact of the day they invented them, only men took credit for them. You know, all the writers that had to have male names, all these brilliant authors as well. So women have been at the forefront of inventing things and building things. And in fact, I think just one block away from where he was talking, there was some major structure that was engineered by a woman. But of course, that's what I mean about it being pathetic. It's just sad. Just educate yourself. Don't make yourself look such a turkey. You know, and also, most women want a husband and a child. Do they? Do they? I wonder how many he's asked. I mean, he's not even a husband. Extraordinary. Matt is in Oxford. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. What do you think? What do you think?
Better.
Yeah, I do feel better. What do you think? Did you watch the?
Well, no, here we go. I heard the homework because I'm radio only. I only have a radio. I don't have a telly.
Oh, right. Okay, that's okay. I let you. You're allowed, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I couldn't watch it, but I don't. Yeah, I understand. See, the thing about it. Oh, I mean, everything that you just said. Gosh. These fellas. I mean, Andrew Tate. What, 3-4 years ago?
It was a while ago now, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of a ludicrous guy. A kind of guy that most men understand is a bit ludicrous. And I passed, when I was at school, there were always groups of guys who, like I was saying to your producer, spoke Klingon in the hallways or gathered over comics or and you said they're incels, so they know nothing about relationships by definition.
By definition, nothing.
By definition. So this is the kind of fantasy of emotionally stunted men, if they are men, but young men who are perpetually 12 at heart, but they've all, 'twas ever thus. And the thing about it, Petrie, is there really is just as frightening a parallel with I've seen some things, that ladies say, young women, and so on. I mean, just I mean, way beyond feminism. My mother, just to say, you know, not that it means much, but just goodbye. My mum taught my dad to drive. She was playing cricket for Surrey Counties ladies in the late 50s, early 60s. She worked in an inner city school with EBD kids. The most admirable, she was back at work 2 months after she had my brother and I. The most admirable, I loved her to death. My dad's mum was, she won a scholarship, the first woman to win a scholarship to her college in Liverpool.
Wow.
My kid's mum has worked all her life, professional woman. You know, men, you know, honestly, this is such a tiny, and the idea that they are, I mean, if they have any kind of influence, it's really kind of within themselves. They're understood by men, not to represent us, for heaven's sake. Just like I wouldn't assume that the ladies who are putting out stuff about men with money and how to get the biggest eyelashes and so on, how to get those boob jobs at 22, I don't think they represent women.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And what's interesting about the Manosphere, and why I found it interesting, was there's such a narrow band of what they perceive a man to be.
Yes.
And they've clearly never asked a woman.
Absolutely.
What?
So that's where they find themselves in the situation, speaking amongst themselves, effectively kind of talking Klingon in the hallways still.
There's an echo chamber, isn't it?
It is, and it is sad, but they're not alone. They're not alone. My point is that please take some time to look at. I want some balance with this, because I hate the idea of. I can't bear the way that men and young men and boys are being represented at the moment. It really breaks my heart. You said something about 91% of victims of sextortion. I don't even know what that is, but I guess it's something like sexting.
Or sextortion, yeah. It's boys being persuaded to send photographs of their private parts, and then and then from men, though. It will be largely from men.
It will be from men, so I assume it will be from gay men.
No, not necessarily, because paedophiles don't. Paedophiles are not necessarily gay, right?
I don't want to. I'm sorry, I don't want to disappear down that. I'm sorry. That, that was just me thinking.
I think Hugh Edwards was paying. He's not gay, and he was paying a young man for photographs. So yeah, I mean, not necessarily.
I don't grasp these things very well, but can I just say something quickly to you, because it matters to me really. So these are young men now. 86% of people in authority at primary schools are women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 96% of the British prison population is male.
Mm-hmm.
And 47% of those have a reading age under 9. Now, what's happening to our boys at that stage in their lives that they're finding themselves? That's a massive percentage.
Oh, it's huge. And I listen, I'm with you 100%.
I want to understand this, and if we keep on, if we get the idea that the Manosphere means anything other than it meant in the hallways in our schools about men, then we're going to all lose our heads.
No. But the problem with the difference, Matt, in when you were a kid and it was in the playground or in the corridors at school, is that these influencers are reaching millions of boys and young men.
So let's talk about that too. Let's stop talking about men and let's talk about malign influencers. Let's talk about.
But that is what we're talking about. And it is what we're talking. But listen,
we don't. We talk. There's no woman's sphere, but there is, because we just don't discuss it.
Yes, but Matt, that argument really. Hang on a minute, because you have spoken. I've let you speak. That argument always annoys me, because I'll tell you why. Don't sigh. Because this phone-in is specifically about the Manosphere. It is about a programme. Yeah, but it's like when I talk about domestic abuse, I go, well, men get abused too. I go, yes, I know, but we're talking about the abuse against women at this point. And there are very few... No, that's not true. And there are very few female presenters as it is, and very few women get their chance to have their point of view put across. So
I don't think that's true.
It is true. How many female presenters are there?
Listen, Alex Phillips is brilliant. Julia Harlow, brilliant. Yeah, there are
three women on one radio station.
No, Kathy Newman, Kate Borsay. I could go on. I mean,
compared to how many men are on the station?
I'm listening for good presenters.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that we are talking about the Manosphere. If there is a Femosphere, and I see a documentary on that, I will watch that and we will talk about that.
But when will it happen? We've been talking about these things. We talk about one
because this toxicity is largely within the male community.
Toxicity exists in all communities, and we need to be more honest.
So you don't think that there is an inherent problem of violence by men against women and girls?
I don't think there's an inherent problem with boys, and I don't think. Yes, of course. My goodness, the idea that.
So we need to talk about that, right? That there is an epidemic. There is an epidemic of violence foisted onto women by men. There's an epidemic of it, and it's growing.
We need to start saying women and children. That would help. Children would help, not just women and girls. You just said 91%.
Yes, but it is women and girls. It is women and girls. It is not women and children. Yes, children. Yes, boys are affected. But it's the violence that we're seeing. Look it up. Look at the figures. The violence is perpetrated largely against women and girls.
Awful, monstrous, sadistic, depraved, self-centered males.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. The Manosphere is not those awful, awful creatures who happen to be male. That's not men, and that's not boys.
But they are men. The rape gangs, men. Who were they raping? Girls.
The most significant thing about them is that they're depraved, selfish, violent, and
men.
At that far extreme, absolutely. But think of all the. Okay, I looked after my boys for 3 months when their mum was in hospital, which was obviously no problem. I moved into the flat, walked into school. Yeah. When I walked to school, I cannot tell you how much casual shouting, slapping and smacking I saw of little boys because they were getting on their mum's nerves. Their mum was tired, irritable, whatever. But where did you think those little boys were getting the idea that when you're irritated, pissed or whatever, that it's okay to shout, swear and smack? Now, what am I supposed to say about that? Am I not allowed
So male violence is the fault of women?
No, I did not say that.
You just did, actually.
No, I said that the idea... Hang on a second, Petrie. There's nature and nurture. Obviously, male testosterone, we get all that. We can't keep banging on about that.
We can, because men are not in control of their hormones, and they blame women for not being in control of their hormones.
Hang on a second. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old boys don't deserve to be smacked by anyone.
No, they don't.
And if it's being meted out...
But you're suggesting that because their mother is slapping them, they then go on to be violent towards women. So you are blaming women.
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm sharing an observation that you seem to feel I'm trying to abstract upwards from.
No, but your observation was that little boys become violent because their mothers slap them. That was your observation.
That's not what I said at all. I said, I observed...
So what was the point of your observation then? So women are smacking these boys and what?
What do you think?
What will you tell me?
True also.
They then get the idea that violence is okay. That's what you said.
I said casual. Casual, not
okay, casual. They then get the idea that casual violence is okay. Therefore,
slapping, shouting, swearing,
blaming the women.
Who am I blaming? I'm not blaming anyone. I'm making an observation.
But your observation led you to the conclusion...
It's okay.
Your observation led you to the conclusion that these little boys are learning casual violence from their mothers.
I made
that was your conclusion?
No, I made an obvious connection.
An obvious connection. Therefore, ergo, you're blaming women for the violence.
It might be possible that boys aren't just, or the manosphere and so on. Look, that's juvenility, and it's always been with us. There are juvenile young women who think that the idea is a man pays for every meal and a sugar daddy's great and so on, and if they're so on, if their boobs are big enough and so on, and they'll find men to match that. In between is the vast majority of us, and we live our lives, the vast majority of us, in a space where, thankfully, we don't experience the stupidity of the manosphere or the femisphere, and we, thank God, we don't experience the awfulness, thank God, of those twisted males. Most of our lives live in that space, and in that space, men, boys and girls, men and women, can all be ridiculous, can all be pointed out to be falling short.
Yes, but this isn't a narrow, small problem.
I spend so much time on the manosphere. I just wonder. It's as if it's a given now, and it stood in isolation from every other experience. I'm a grown man. I love women, and I'm not under the impression they're sugar and spice. And we're allowed to talk about that. It's not that it stops anything else or that it cancels it out. I'm not using it as a defense. There's no defense.
But it's always the case whenever I talk about a gender-specific topic.
Well, gosh, I was trying very much to help you. I really don't want to do that.
But whenever I talk about something that is gender-specific, I always get somebody phone up and say, "What about the other gender?"
Well, I guess I'm just somebody then. Okay.
But what's the point of that when we're having a discussion on one thing and you're saying, well, we should actually be talking about the other thing? It doesn't negate it, does it?
The tone of the discussion is absolutely as if it was the only discussion. It was the only thing. And it always is. You say you always get someone like me call up. Well, maybe it's because the conversation is always loaded this way. And
oh, my goodness me, Matt. Honestly, this was called the Manosphere. We were talking about a specific programme called the Manosphere. So if you can't understand that basic principle, then why are you phoning up and going, well, you should be talking about something else? Because that's not how phone-ins work.
I appreciate that. Well, I guess I better get off the line, Patrick.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk, and it's Talkback with me, Petrie, and we're talking about inside the Manosphere, in case that wasn't clear. We're talking about the documentary, Louis Theroux, and just discussing really the programme itself and what this means to the society that we live in today. And my take on it was that I felt sorry for those guys. I thought they were a bit pathetic, because they adhered to a very narrow view of what a man is, and men are much more than that. And they also adhered to a very, very narrow view of what a woman was like. And they chose just one type of woman to focus on, and these are the sort of the women that do the OnlyFans and things like that, who they felt were only after men like they have become. And that's one thing I couldn't understand either. You know, by the way, there is no femisphere in the same way there is a manosphere. There are women who will go on social media as influencers and talk about plastic surgery and talk about the kind of man they want to marry, and they want rich men, and they want, you know, blah, blah, blah. But they don't put men down in the same way as the manosphere does. It's a very different sphere. Do I think there are a lot of very horrible women in this world? Absolutely. I've met a lot of them. You know, you know, there are some vile women in this world, women for whom I would never agree and I would never want to spend time with, and I think they're vacuous. But that in itself doesn't take away from what we're talking about, which is the male side of this argument. So that's what we're going to talk about. Tristan. Hello, lovely.
Hello,
how are you?
Lovely. Good evening. I'm all right, thanks, Petrie. Thanks for asking. I hope you're keeping okay. Before I begin, can I just get something in, please? Talk TV, you hit the nail on the head. I've been complaining for ages about the lack of female representation on this channel. There are two key female presenters, and one of you has the graveyard shift and make it cutting your hours from time to time. If they do that again, I will switch off.
Oh, bless
so
you.
Anyway, I'll leave that where it is. So I want to put a different angle on this, if I may, please. Gay men. It gets very much amplified, this whole situation. It seems like every gay man in the world has a six-pack these days. And if you haven't got a six-pack, good looks or a lot of money, you stand zero chance of finding a partner.
It's very... I've got... As you know, I've got mostly gay friends. And
that's it.
So I do have these conversations, and I know how shallow the gay world can be. And how it can be and is very youth oriented and very you know, looks oriented, like you said. You know, if you're a good looking old gay man, you'll do well. If you're not gonna, or a young man, you know, you've got to be a pretty young boy. So I do know that in the gay world, just like you said, it is amplified. But there isn't that same hatred for women. I mean...
No, I feel so sorry for women, Petrie. I really do. Women often, a lot more than gay men, will go for a guy based on his humour. They don't always mind a guy being big or overweight.
No, I've never minded that.
And, you know, before I went blind, I remember a lot of very beautiful women... Sorry if that sounds like I'm objectifying, being with guys who were just very plain and didn't have looks.
And didn't have money.
Person.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. And amongst the youth now, because of all this pornography that's on the internet, the pressure on women to do things that are absolutely abhorrent to keep a man happy, in their opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of girls turning up at you know, doctors and hospitals and things like that, having been strangled during sex. Young women, because a lot of boys have seen that kind of porn and think that's sex, and so they become, you know, the strangulation thing is a big thing at the moment. apparently.
It's like the days of romance and dating and all that has died. It really is so sad.
And I do feel so sorry for young people, because I do think it's a very looks orientated world. I think it always was, but I think that again has been amplified by the internet, and a lot of girls feeling they're not good enough, and a lot of boys also feeling they're not good enough. But when boys feel they're not good enough, there is a tendency to turn that towards hating women, whereas when women don't feel good enough, they don't turn that to hating men, they turn that to hating themselves.
Yeah, I'm certainly picking up on a lot more domestic abuse of women now in this day and age. It's really starting to go up.
There's an huge increase in the domestic abuse of men as well. But whether that's perpetrated by other men or not, I don't know.
It might largely be, but it's not a nice time to be a woman in this country, because the expectations of women are just so high and so unrealistic by men. And I'm a man saying this. I hope this doesn't sound like mansplaining.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, not at all. I feel very sorry for the younger generation. I mean, I'm old enough now that I don't care anymore. I'm invisible. I don't care, and I'm really happy with that. That does not bother me at all.
How many kids have you got?
But it would have done as a young woman.
You know how many?
I would have found that upsetting. But I don't think I ever really noticed it. I don't think I ever really felt ugly or I never felt I had to be anything different. I was always quite comfortable with who I was, and now like I said, I'm so comfortable I don't care. But I do. I was going to say thank you for making the point about the gay world, because I do know that can be very toxic.
Sorry to play the gay card, but it's quite important tonight, I think, just to mention that.
I think it's important. I think it's important because I do think that there are a lot of people that do just look for the shallow, the surface, and it never lasts, and then they move on to the next one. Tristan, you take care, my darling, and hopefully I will speak to you soon. Dave is in Manchester. Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Good morning to you. Did you watch the documentary?
I watched it. Can you hear me all right? It's on speakerphone. Okay, good.
Yeah, I've got you.
I watched the bit with the, HS?
Tiki-toki, yeah.
And I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, the bit with the punching bag thing and how hard he can punch, and I love Louis Theroux as well. I don't think the way they were treating Louis Theroux, and they had no idea who he was, did they?
They really didn't know. I mean, that was also stupid, right?
Yeah. So it's stupidity, really. I actually coach boxing, but I thought sometimes when guys come in and teenagers and talk to me about their girlfriend or who they're going to beat up next and things like that, I'm just like, why? Because when my girlfriend, when we were younger, if I had just punched somebody because of that, she would have dumped me. I mean, if I had reason to defend myself, she wouldn't. But if I was insecure about the fact that some guy was looking at her, she would have been horrified. It was like,
yeah, no, absolutely, and this is why I felt a bit sorry for them. And I don't mean that in a patronising way at all.
Yeah,
I really don't. Because I thought, they've boxed themselves in, excuse the pun, into such a narrow view of what a man is.
They've been sort of convinced. That's what I was going to get onto. Actually, you sort of brought me onto role models as well. Do you remember when celebrities were good at something? So, my actual boxing's just been a part of my life, and it's just something I do. But I'm a comedian, and I've been a musician, and basically it wasn't fame that if people used to ask me, "Do you want to be famous?" I said, "Well, everyone wants to be famous, don't they?" But it's not. I just wanted to be good,
And that's the difference. There's this whole attitude of fame for fame's sake. And that's why I laughed when you said, you remember when celebrities used to be good at something? They used to have a talent that made them famous rather than just fame for its own sake.
And if you do actually read or watch anything about, take something like Boy George or something like, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits and that, they actually the majority of people like that, they tell you that fame is quite an evil thing. It's not. It's about being passionate about something, and that's what my girlfriend told me. She said that's what she loved about me. That she said it's how passionate you are.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, okay. There's no need to worry about these things. Obviously, if I had to defend her, I would. But it's like in your mind, why do you think like that? What's wrong with you?
But what is going on though, Dave? That these young boys. I mean, I really applaud getting involved with boxing. I think it's an excellent thing for men and women to get involved in, actually. But what is it, do you think, that is making these young men so insecure? Because that's what it is. It's insecurity.
I think it's a bit. I mean, if I could just get, I was raised. I think the last time we spoke, it was about me being raised in Papua New Guinea. You remember we were talking about?
Oh yeah.
So my father, who now lives in Dubai, he's a very clever guy, but he was violent when we were growing up, and particularly to me and to my mum. But so it wasn't a nice sort of atmosphere. But it's like it sort of it made me. You got to overcome things, haven't you? It's not and the people that I was that were, I suppose, say, famous at the time, or people that I was influenced by, they had similar things, or they might have had even worse. But there's nobody like that. People go on television, like, for instance, audition in front of, Simon Cowell, and they cry because he says, "Oh," and I think, well, why? What's this? Why is that even on television? I think a lot of what I've noticed as well, nobody reads or anything anymore. Nobody wants to do anything, or nobody wants to. None of the kids who I teach at the boxing club, they don't jog. We used to have to jog and stuff. Do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? Well, and their parents don't push them either. The parents aren't interested.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, and it was interesting that Louis pointed out in Inside the Manosphere that each of them had come from, I think, from a broken home to some degree, and that was another reason to feel sorry for them. But that's because I'm not threatened by them. I'm not scared of them. I'm not threatened by them at all.
Yeah, exactly, and also I think because you're a nice person, aren't you? You're a kind person. You're an intelligent person, so you don't just immediately. There's another thing. People just make snap judgments.
Yeah.
And you think, well, hang on a second. You don't even know that person. So
no, I try to be reasonable and see things from both sides, which is why, looking at the Manosphere thing, I thought I'd be angrier. I wasn't, and I'm being honest and reasonable about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is all men. I'm not saying that all women are great. That is not who I am, and that's not what I believe. There are some horrible women in the world, and there are some horrible men in the world, and I don't believe it's all men, and I don't believe it's all women.
Yeah. The attention span as well is sort of gone.
That's true. Yeah.
The idea of, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, or being... This is something I was talking about somebody as well. This idea of there's no. Well, so when I was a teenager, and it was like sort of becoming fancying girls and stuff. Brad Pitt was the big star, and I love the guy. I idolize him. And then suddenly you realise, how can I compete with him? You can't.
You can't.
You never will do. So find what you do, and that's it. You can't compete with him. Well, that's not fair. Sorry.
Sorry, life isn't. I wasn't born beautiful and can't be a model. So what? I'm not going to gripe about it. I'm also 5'2".
Celebrate him because he's brilliant and what a guy. And then it's like, that's how you idolise somebody. That's because of what they are.
Find your own thing. Find who you are. And that's what depressed me about this very narrow view of men that they had, because there are so many brilliant, wonderful men that do different things, that are different people, the whole range, the whole gamut, and yet they squeeze themselves into this tiny, narrow, pointless box.
Into it. The way that you put it there is perfect. Yeah, it's like that. They don't. There's no peripheral. There's no like. What's wrong with you? You don't have to do that. Why are you doing?
Yeah. Why are you doing this? Yeah. Just develop, learn, grow, and then the women will be chasing you down the street. That's the truth of it. Dave, thank you very much indeed. I've got to take a break. But Dave, thank you. Brilliant call.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with Talkback, and we are talking about inside the Manosphere. And loads of comments coming through. Snakebite has written, morning Snakebite, says those Manosphere boys are just losers who had bad or no role models growing up and now exploit kids and adults alike who themselves had bad or no role models because it's easier to pry money away from them. They don't know any better, and I don't think the women who get with those Manosphere boys know any better either. It's a grift, and a rather dangerous one, because chances are some kid out there will totally buy in and end up doing something much worse than what I saw on Thoreau's programme. And that snake is actually it. That snakebite is it. That is the worry, is that some kid is going to take it upon himself to do some real damage because of those influencers, and they don't care because they are just grifters. Andy said, I watched about half the show before I and my wife became so exasperated we had to turn it off. The shallowness of those blokes and the women that succumb to it is disappointing, and to think those shallow, pretentious, pompous guys are looked up to by some women is even more depressing. It's a snapshot of the deteriorating intelligence of our young society. And then just a hiss. I agree with all of that. It was so shallow. And that's what I said. It was shallow and it was narrow. And they're boxing themselves into that narrow view of what a man is. I thought that was sad, because men are brilliant, right? And just to make yourself that stereotypical thuggery idiot type man. I didn't see the point of that. Debbie says, integrity, trust and respect for me, but I'm with you. Laughter is a must for me. My man is so funny, and I've noticed how people gravitate towards his company when we go out because he's fun and nice to be around. He's got a good aura around him. That's the most important thing, is laughter. It really is. And Lee said, there's a lot of talk these days about what it means to be a man, but to be honest, I don't really recognise most of what's being discussed. A lot of terms people just confuse me. I've been with my wife since I was 16, married at 21, and I'm 49 now. She's 53. She's my soulmate, and I've always been able to be myself with her. That's never changed. Together we built a life and raised 2 sons, now 23 and 21. So when I heard your question about what women have taken from men, I don't really relate. From my experience, a good relationship gives you far more than it takes: stability, purpose, and someone to share life with. I wouldn't say I've ever sat down and defined what it is to be a man, but I do know what it is to love and be loved, and to stand by someone through life's ups and downs. That's been enough for me. I'm a simple sort. If my sons have picked anything up from me, I hope it's some old school values: loyalty, commitment, respect, and being there for the people who matter. Maybe that's not a popular definition these days, but it's the one that I've lived. Well, that's the only one that matters, isn't it? That's what a man is. You've just summed it up. It's that and so much more. It's not that narrow, pathetic view, really. And Gary said, after watching Inside the Manosphere, my overall conclusion is that I felt the film paints these men less as cartoon villains and more as symbols of real masculinity and a loneliness crisis, but one who profit from making it worse rather than solving it. A lot of it seems from personal fractures, absent or troubled upbringings, one-parent families, no father figures and loneliness, resentment towards modern society and a craving for simple answers and status. To me, this reflects years of man bashing. And that's from Gary in Glasgow. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. Natalie has called. Good morning, Natalie. Did you watch it?
Good morning. I started to watch it, and I must confess I did fall asleep because I just found it ridiculous. I am aiming to watch it through again properly, but yeah.
You saw the sort of premise of it. These sort of very narrow version of what a man should be, and basically influencing boys to believe that was what a man is.
I found it sad and frustrating.
Yeah, I did too. I think that's the 2 words that would sum it up for me.
And frustrating and scary. I mean, I'm an invisible 50-something-year-old.
Yeah, join the club.
And I have a 20-year-old daughter she's very intelligent, very articulate, very driven, and obviously I'm very proud of that. You know, and I think. But there's a lot, I think, with the social media aspect and how some girls are with the OnlyFans, who I think it's scary that there's like a culture that's how girls should be perceived in that sense. Does that
well, it's
make
one
sense?
type of young woman, isn't it? And they exist. But are you worried about this sort of leaning into misogyny that we're seeing from a lot of young boys? I mean, I'm so fortunate. I don't have a young daughter. I have a sort of daughter-in-law who I adore, and I worry for her. But it must be worrying being a mum of a daughter.
Yes, and I mean she's beautiful. She is a beautiful young woman, you know, and the things that have happened to her, she's been growing up, makes me so fearful and sad how she's been perceived or spoken to from males, and we all, you know, from teenage years, from, you know, grown men who should know better.
Yeah.
And I think the point I'm trying to say is it's sad that things haven't progressed and moved forward. There seem to
no, because we had to put up with that, right? When we were young women, and we weren't invisible.
Yeah.
You know, there was always some older bloke who was a bit grabby and a bit touchy and a bit made comments, and then if you said no to them, they called you a lesbian. I mean, that's been going on for years, right?
Yeah.
But it should have got better.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes me sad, that young girls are having to do this. And I think with the social media, obviously reaching far more people than we did, in our youth.
Yeah.
I think that's what sort of scares me more. Maybe not for my daughter, but for other girls as well. It does it. How do we sort of move on from this? How do we, because there's lots of things on social media